Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The select board's call to order April 10th, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. Okay, item 3, approve the March 27th select board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
First and second,
I'm abstaining.
and you're abstaining. So it'll be 4 and 1 abstention, right? Right. Okay, public forum. This is anybody who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda this evening. Come on up. Just state your name and where you're from.
My name is Maureen Summers, Wildwood Avenue in Kennebunkport, Goose Rock section, and I have been in contact with you just with regards to some issues of non-conforming issues and expansion of non-conforming issues at the Tides Beach Club and the KRC in general, the use of Hidden Pond. I was nice enough, kind enough, John, Selectman Dykstra did email me back yesterday addressing some of my concerns, and I did go up and I see now regarding the pathway that now there is a new pathway, which again, I applaud the pathway. I think it's a great way to come across and have some new ideas and creative ways to help alleviate flooding and protect our properties. It's a great idea. So I understand now why the new placement and extension of the width, I guess, of the reserve zone has moved a little bit because of the path. So please disregard what I wrote this morning because now I can see. But I do appreciate you getting back to me. The real issue that I have, I think, and a number of people, as I had mentioned, that I do run the community page, and so many times I have stopped from posting and removed posts or comments from people. There's a high level of frustration from the local people because of what's occurring at the tides in the summertime. And we clearly understand that there is a reserve zone that's 25 feet and now it's between the two poles. Totally get that. We understand that 25 feet from the vegetation line or the dunes to towards the shoreline is the reserve zone. What is happening is in the reserve zone, they have stored, which they can, I understand, close to 200 beach chairs, which I've sent you photographs of. So they have lounge chairs that are probably 5 or 6 feet just this way alone. And then they have close to 200 of those. They have tables, they have a hydration station, they have a towel place where they store all the towels. They have storage for their umbrellas, for the tables that they use. So what they're doing, which I think is non-conforming use, is the idea that they have employed beach tenders, and those beach tenders' job is to service and provide services and amenities on the beach. And this is where I'm unclear, because I think that's a non-conforming use. There was a non-conforming use where they were serving food to people, and that has subsided. I am totally for commerce. I think the Tides has been a good neighbor for several years. My family, 3 generations of my family have worked at the Tides since the 1940s. My issue is that for generations and years, when Marie owned it, when Allen's by the Sea had it, people took their chairs, whether provided by Marie at the Tides or they brought their own, and they placed them wherever they wanted on the beach. It's fine, right? What's happening now is that these beach tenders are providing a service on the beach, and they're taking the chairs, they're only putting them out, so they're putting them out in the reserve zone, but then they're also putting them beyond that reserve zone. So to me, their guests or their customers, they're providing a service for them. They're going outside the reserve zone. I don't think inside the reserve zone is actually correct, but then there's nothing to stop them from going outside of the reserve zone and providing a service. Now, I understand that the Tides and the Hidden Pond KRC also charges a daily resort fee, which can be anywhere from $40 to $75. Included in that resort fee and advertised is the use of a beach tender, services and amenities, including the rental of kayaks, right? That they're paying for, kayak rental, stand-up paddle boards, canoes, any kind of watercraft. And so as I've sent to you video, they're actually taking the watercraft and walking across and transversing the beach and placing the guests or the customers into the watercraft. And the issue, I think, is not only that they're providing a service, but a couple of years ago, another local business had a kayak company, and he was not allowed to bring his kayaks to the beach. He wasn't allowed to place them on the beach. He wasn't allowed to bring his guests or customers to the water and help them get on the watercraft. So I just feel like there should be some kind of delineation mark or some kind of clear answer as to what is allowed and what isn't, and why the KRC is allowed to provide a service on the beach. It's, to me, the same thing as a brick and mortar store that's on our beach and it's our public beach. Why is that allowed for some people and not allowed for other people? And what's to stop it from happening other places on the beach as we move forward? There's a company that is out there that started where I am, another beach town, and they will provide a service where you call up and tell them where you're going to be, and they put your beach chairs up there, and then they bring you food, they set it all up for you, and then go out. There's now a lawsuit against them for doing that because they're providing a service on the public beach, building a brick and mortar store on the beachfront. So I guess I'm asking you today, what is the answer? Are they allowed to do this? And having heard we can't discuss it, or we're doing the best we can, or, you know, it's just frustrating not having an answer as to what's happening, and we're approaching another season. And with Ocean Woods, whatever's going to happen there, there's going to be more people using this 25-foot reserve zone. I mean, why can't people just take the chairs and put them out wherever they want on the beach? Why do we have to have a beach tender? So is there a clear answer on that?
We're still working with the Tides. I believe that we are going to have a meeting before summer, right? To try to work all this out.
So
We're doing the best we possibly can.
and I understand that it's been going on now. And it's like I said in my email, I said, it's like the issue of the non-conforming expansion of the non-conforming onion. Every time you peel one layer back, another layer and another issue comes up. So I understand that it's multifaceted, and I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, but you know, just some kind of clear understanding for everyone would be helpful.
Can you just give us a little time, another month or 6 weeks to see what we can find out and come back with some answers for you that's hopefully conclusive.
And could we get that on an agenda? Could it be an agenda item so that people could voice their opinion? Because I mean, my thing blows up and I'm just like,
Okay.
you know, I could appreciate it, but you know, as it's a volunteer position, and it's like sometimes can be a full-time job, right?
What's the board feel about putting this on an agenda?
Well, I think right now we're working through the process.
Right.
And I'm hesitant to put a timeline because, as you said, there's, you know, frustration in terms of the length, right? So we understand your frustration. We feel it. I know we're working very closely with them, and it's very good when we get views and when you take the time out of your time to come and talk to us about it, and again to showcase the problems and what the residents are feeling, because that adds to our stuff when we go back to these discussions. So we do appreciate the feedback. We are working, hard. As you said, you've seen some things already, but I think we are still in those discussions. And so
It's hard, yeah.
And so we can't really comment until we can get out of them.
It's hard when there's 21 rooms and yet there's close to 200 chairs. I'm going to say that again. 21 rooms at the resort and 200 chairs, close to 200 chairs on the beach. That's not including the tables and all the other beach equipment and the watercraft. So-
Aren't we having a public hearing in 2 weeks on one of their other issues?
What'd you say?
We're having a public hearing on them with one of their other issues that they're asking in 2 weeks.
Right.
So you might want to come to that.
Okay. And when
But-
is,
I mean, it's not to deal with what you're dealing with right now, but
it's an onion, right? It really is. It's just one layer after another.
But just give us some time. We've been working, believe us.
Yeah.
On this for
I know.
several years, and we're gonna try to bring some form of and some kind of answers back to you.
That would be great.
Can't promise anything.
And
I can just find out.
Some kind of way that we
Right.
delineate, like, where is this 25 foot? And, which is also great that a lot of the dune grass was replanted. And so it's extended now down the beach. We're trying to keep our beaches safe, right? But now the reserve zone is moving down and down and down, right? Which is okay. But there may come a time as the ebb and flow of the ocean changes that you could have the same situation that you have at the east end of the beach. And now your 25-foot reserve zone is going at the 10 feet. That could happen next year. It might never happen. It could happen 5 years from now. So just trying to be forward thinking in this so that we have these answers so that when things happen, there's already an answer to it and there's no need for discussion,
Well, we're gonna do the best we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your comments.
Anybody else?
Hello, back again. My name is Andrew, Commander of the American Legion Post 159. Again, I'm here asking for your support. I know we had talked about Memorial Day or the Saturday before, I think it's the 24th, of our hall running the parking lot down behind Allison's and doing a profit split with the town. So I'm just here to formally request it to you. Like I said before, we're a nonprofit. We, I know we're not the obvious choice sometimes. We're not a very good, we're not the face of the franchise by any means. We're a grizzled bunch. We swear a lot, but I think we're gonna do a good job for you. And we'll make you proud down there. Like I said, we a nonprofit, all of our money goes back into local veterans in the community. Every $10 we bring in, $9 goes out to help those people. And we're getting to a point now where our building is in need of desperate need of repair. And we just need to find funds in any way possible, especially with our handicap ramp. So again, I'm here to ask for your support.
So what day are you looking to do this?
Saturday before Memorial Day, which I believe is the 24th.
It's 24th.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that the board has talked about maybe doing a 50-50,
Yes.
okay? What's everybody say?
100%.
as I said to Andrew and talking to him, the 50-50 is agreed and we will provide training.
Yep.
So you know how to make sure that gate goes up, but
Sure.
I would support this and I would make a motion to adopt it.
And we're also gonna allow you to have a
Booth,
booth or a
table. fundraising.
table for
Okay,
fundraising.
we'll put our best look.
And I think that would help you a lot.
Yes, it would.
you did.
It definitely would. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's important to underscore that this is being done in honor and recognition of Memorial Day and of the sacrifice that you have so wonderfully given to the country. So that's this is not something we hope we're going to do a lot of different weekends.
Right.
We do have the prelude where we open it up to nonprofits.
Mhm.
That's one time, and this time again, in recognition of Memorial Day, I couldn't think of a better time.
We appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
we really appreciate the Memorial Day parade you guys
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
on.
You bet.
Oh, we have a good one planned for you.
And I'd like to, did you make a motion?
I will make a motion. I will make a motion that in honor of the service of the American Legion Post and the vets, that we allow for the operation, that them to operate the parking at Dock Square parking lot Saturday, May 24th, with the proceeds being split 50-50 with the town. And we also would allow the Legion to put out a table or a booth to support their cause.
Can I just,
Sheila has something to say.
I believe that during Prelude, the PTA was also helping with the parking from the consolidated, but they had to share it with another organization.
Okay.
So you're asking for the whole day? Or
Yes.
can somebody else step in?
Just
Okay,
that day.
okay.
Just
Just a
Just for
question.
that,
their day.
Yeah, I
their
think,
day.
like when John pointed out, I think what was important to our discussions is when John pointed out is that we're doing this because it's in alignment with the day itself and the Veterans Organization. And then we have Prelude opened up for everyone, for all the not-for-profits.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Okay.
We'll
Any
save
more
you guys a
discussion?
plate from the barbecues.
so,
have a
I
first.
hear there's been a beer drunk once in a while.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get these guys out of here before they break something.
It's a nice day on the Memorial Day.
Yes, me too.
It'll be busy anyway, so
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Any more, anybody else in the,
public forum.
no? Okay, 5.
Nobody on Zoom.
No? Anybody
Yeah,
else? Okay. Okay, 5, consider a renewal liquor license for Rumline Motor Lodge, Inc., DBA is Rumline Resort, 41 Turbot's Creek Road. Hard decision.
Recusing myself.
so moved.
And the town has reviewed this and recommended,
Yes.
which I think is important
So,
just to know.
Can somebody make a first?
Second,
First, second, any more discussion? You want to say something?
I'm recusing myself.
All in favor? 4 and 1,
Or an abstention.
okay. 6, consider a new liquor license for Olivia's LLC DBA Ultramar Restaurant 77 Pier Road.
Again, approved by, reviewed and recommended for approval by staff. So I would move that we approve the renewal of the liquor license for the Olivia's LLC doing business as Ultramar Restaurant, 77 Pier Road.
So move, second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Okay, consider the following renewal liquor licenses submitted by the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. We're gonna,
So there's a variety of liquor license applications under the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. There were some questions about some of the licenses. I passed out this letter that Emily Nelson sent us this afternoon, and Emily is here as well if you have questions for her.
Hi, Emily.
Yeah, I would be curious. Apparently, some of the ownership assignments are not correct, and this is a public document. And I think it would be important to have those correct. So I would hope that you might consider getting that piece. I understand there's also a name assignment that has to do with a website that you really don't have control. The state's got it, and you can't change that. And boy, that's a state website. And so I have total empathy on that. But I think I would like to see on this public document, the percentages, the ownerships assigned accordingly. Appropriate.
Absolutely happy to do that.
Can-
Data
you
management-
can you step up to the microphone?
Yeah.
Emily Nelson from the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. I do have that information, and the state of Maine has that updated as well. Obviously, we've spoken, the applications that were sent does not match what the state records have right now. So the contact name, that, information that's been questioned, the state records have been updated accordingly. So I'm happy to have that updated for the public record as
Thank you.
well.
so if you can come back at the next meeting
Mhm.
with all that information.
Certainly
we-
revised applications.
yeah.
If you would just send them in ahead of time, no need to come back.
You don't need to come.
So,
Right.
thanks.
Absolutely happy to do so. I just wanted to be here today to answer any questions. I certainly wanted to have this be a topic tonight. But happy to present that, and then looking for approval at that next meeting then.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, if you get everything in line, we'll take care of it.
okay, Happy to,
Thank you.
of course.
Thank you.
Nope.
Nope.
I think, thank you for coming in.
We are gonna do your.
Unless you want to do your special amusement permit.
Yeah.
Okay, 8, consider the following renewal special amusement permits submitted by Kennebunkport Resort Collection. I'm gonna read these down and we can just take one vote.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I just want to comment that we did amend the agenda and took Sandy Pines off here. That was a clerical error on the town's part. Sandy Pines is not a part of the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. They are a separate entity and they will be coming to the next meeting, but that was our error. They are not a part of the Kennebunkport Resort Collection.
Okay, so, excuse me. Lodge on the Cove LLC, 29S Main Street. C, Cape Arundel Inn LLC, 208 Ocean Avenue. D, Ivy One LLC DBA, the clubhouse at Cape Arundel Inn, 8 Old Fort Avenue. E, Hidden Pond LLC, 354 Goose Rocks Road. F, the Kennebunkport Inn LLC, 1 Dock Square. G, Tides Beach Club LLC, 930 Kings Highway. H, Yachtsman Hospitality LLC, 57 Ocean Avenue. I, the Boathouse at Kennebunkport LLC, 21 Ocean Avenue. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to
Wait.
approve the special amusement permits for the Kennebunkport Resort Collection hotels listed.
Second,
I have a first, second, any more discussion? All in favor?
You know, I do have a question. If we can, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow us to go back to to what we just said we would delay, I do have a question
Sure.
on that. I was curious that the Ivy One is on for the special amusement, which we've just approved. On the liquor license application, it says you expect to sell $0 in liquor and 0 in food. So I'm a little curious, how does that work?
So Cape Arundel, as that 208 Ocean Avenue address, is the one that operates the clubhouse. So we just, all of the revenue reflection is reflected at Cape Arundel Inn.
We did that.
Okey doke. So the Cape Arundel, so when we approve Cape Arundel next time around, that's, but the Ivy is on there for completeness?
Just to make sure that, yeah, because it'll be served at that property, at that location, right? So, but
But the revenue is all.
the revenue
included
is shown,
on the other
the
side.
revenue is shown at Cape
Yes, that's-
Arundel. Yes, yes, we just want to make sure we're covered.
No, well, if you're serving it.
That's a little different.
Exactly. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Did we vote?
Yes, yes.
Did, we said, we had that discussion last year.
Oh.
Are we good?
I think we're all set, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. 9, Climate Resiliency Committee Quarterly Update. Is there anybody here that's?
Mr. Henderson?
Ah.
I was expecting me on for another 2 hours.
Oh, we're quick.
You are very quick. Hi, I'm Paul Henderson. I'm a 25-year homeowner down in Land's End in Cape Porpoise area. Here as the secretary of the Climate Resiliency Committee. And I just got asked to do this at the last minute, so I didn't send in my paperwork, but I'll have a little copy to give to you for the records. But a quick review, this quarterly review of what's been happening on the CRC. And just to review, the CRC was formed just about a year ago, so we're coming up on our sort of a year in June. The committee was picked in May of last year, and there's 7 members on the committee. In addition to that, Nadia from the town and our 2 select board members, John and Mary Beth, are on that as well. So we meet monthly at the fire station on the 2nd Wednesday of the month. And people are, obviously it's open to the public for people to come and join them. So occasionally we have visitors that reviewing for the quarter, what's been happening really, I think for the last, this year. We had 2 goals that were approved by the select board back last fall for this year, for the 2024-25 year. One was, these are derived from the climate action plan. One of them was to help streamline the town ordinances relative to property owners and building resiliency into their property. And the second one was related to energy, to help accelerate the adoption of renewable energy by the residents. So those were the first things we started working on. The first goal one we started working on October of last year. Regarding updating ordinances, we met with Galen and his team relative to a lot of suggestions that the team had, because there's a lot of energy in trying to make sure that people could take the action they needed to enable resiliency. Quickly, it was discovered, though, that Galen was way ahead of us and had a lot of these ordinance updates already in play, some of which I know are still in the final stages of review and going on the ballot. So there was a lot of good stuff happening at that point. And we decided collectively, and I think with the input from the select board, to put that on hold and move on more to the energy-focused activities. So at that time, one of the key things that the committee was focused on was that it was very, with respect to renewable energy, it was often very difficult for people to understand what the options were, both in terms of the technology as well as the potential subsidies that were available from the state or the federal government. And wouldn't it be good if one of the things we could do to help adoption was to put some kind of tool together, which we call the Energy Navigator for short, temporarily, to help residents figure out what was good for their property and good for their specific needs. And the idea was this might be something that could be on the town website as a tool to help you sort of navigate you through this and eventually point you to the resources that might be available elsewhere on the internet. So a process was started on this, and we thought that it might be useful it might be a good student project at UNE to help actually build this work. And John led this effort with John Dykstra, going over and speaking with some of the people over there. And good news is they were excited to do this. But as we got closer to that, we dug in more to that process. It turned out there was actually a very similar process that was being done by the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission that is focused on helping local residents in the 3 or 4 cities that are funding that with winterization, electricalization, and other things related to renewable energy. So, and they had a project that was underway targeting potentially spring launch. We'll see if that's really on schedule, and had some funding from the energy department, I believe it was, to actually do that work. So we decided temporarily to step back from that. We gave them our input about what our concept and what ideas were on that, and they're off and running on that, and we're expecting them to report back in at some point when they're ready in the spring. And ideally, we'll provide a little more input in terms of how we might utilize that, either in conjunction with the website or potentially some other feedback. But they're off and running on that, and hopefully that's going to deliver something useful for the multiple communities involved. So that led us to looking into our next project, and just happened at that point that I think there was discussion happening here at the select board, as well as some interest that we had in potentially getting involved in another project, which was to potentially establish a solar farm on the town's reclaimed landfill on Beechwood Avenue. And obviously, there's so many questions about how you might go about that, and what it might cost, and who would take the lead and stuff on that. So the initial concept is really we need a project to really scope that out and to see if that makes any sense. And so again, we thought, hey, this is a good thing for UNE, and some of our team members with John and and Fred Stafford also were involved in going over and speaking with the faculty there. And it turns out, yes, this is a great kind of project that interests them from the climate change and business perspective. And since then, they've assigned 4 students to that and an associate professor to both scope that project out and begin executing on it. There's been meetings at the landfill itself, I think recently, to understand and scope out the facility. And there are other activities planned with other support groups, such as the solar developer, Solar Energy, who's going to help them look at the business case of that, and as well as others. So right now, that's on track to deliver a first blush information about back of the envelope kind of an assessment about what could a project look like that, and what we can then look to sort of make sense. And that'll be presented to both the CRC, and I know it's also going to come to the select board, probably in the April-May timeframe is the guess at this point.
Of next year,
Of this year,
of this year?
yes.
Wow.
The assessment,
It'll be
yeah,
an update that I'll
Yeah.
provide for you.
yeah.
So just to remind everybody, John and I had attended a seminar. And it's a company that has done this on municipalities in Maine and some other states in our area on landfills. So it's a landfill utilization, and they have several different types of models. So it's not like our town, like we're not doing it clean sheet, so to speak. You know, there's a company that has done this. They have a model, and then there's different various models. Somebody leases your land. They come in and do everything, you buy back some, you know, that's what the UNE, and we'll be the students will be helping us on what is the best, business model, if there is one, you know, because there's some expense to put it in. And so we're looking at it, you know, it's not a clean sheet, just us going and doing something. It's trying to see if there's a business model that will help us replicate something for what we would consider dead space in town.
Is part of this business model, do they explain what happens to these solar panels and whatever else you want to put up? What happens when there's a disposal situation? What do you do with them when they're not working anymore? What do you do with the chemicals or
Well, that's
stuff
that's a
in them?
larger question in solar panels in general, and that technology's
know.
been moving along quite well, actually. The black mass that is extracted from recycling solar panels is getting more and more efficient in extracting the metals and materials needed. Next to nuclear, it's incredibly clean. And next to fossil fuel, it's probably as clean when you look at the ramifications. So I understand that that's a question, but I don't see it as a concern.
You don't.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think this is, you know, so these are good questions. And I think once we start going through this process, you know, from, you know, so we let the process play out, and then, you know,
Well,
bring it back to the board.
I know, but in the long term, what are we going to do with these used up panels? Where do they go? They
Well-
can't go to the dump.
No, so this could be part of, you know, so this concern can be brought in, and so this could be part of the answer in the business model. So for example, there are companies that come in and lease towns' lands, and they do everything. And so they would own it, they would lease the property. I'm not saying this is how we're doing it. I'm just saying that this is something that when John and I listened to that some, you know, that discussion, this is one of the models that they use. So therefore they would own it, right? They would come in, they'd set up, they would own it. And the town would, you know, would work out some agreement about buyback and then be utilizing that land mass for something. You know,
And usually part of those business plans, there's a lifespan of the process. So maybe it's 25 years or something, and there has to be part of that is what do you do with it?
yeah.
So that would definitely
Costs for
have to be
disposal.
part of the
Did you say 25 years?
25 years, 25 years, but I mean, I'm not the expert on that, but just there's numbers like that. So in other words, when you look at a project like that, it's like putting a power plant in or anything else, right? You have to look at the total lifespan of it and amortizing the costs over the whole thing. So that would definitely be part of the assessment. And we're not we're not near that yet. So, that'll be a multiple stage, I think, final process to really come
But
in
I think that's a
and make
good,
sense,
yeah.
make it make sense to everybody,
Yeah, I think
including the
that's a-
general
that's a
public,
good-
but.
That's a good question, and I
Yeah.
think that's why we try to do these these reviews,
Mhm.
so we can hear from the board and you don't, that we have some exposure to what the board's thinking.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
Are you all set or?
Oh, just two other
Oh,
quick
go
things. So,
ahead.
relative to just other activities on the side, we do also meet with other departments from the town as well. So we've spent time with, Eric LaBelle presenting what's happening from a resiliency point of view from the water and sewer perspective. I've identified, he's well along the way in many areas there, but there's a couple areas that might make sense to look into, for us later into next year, for example. And we also met with the Shade Tree Committee just yesterday about some of what they're up to and some potential collaboration that could happen in that area. So part of what we're also trying to do is being a focal point, clearinghouse for resiliency related stuff and collaboration, and that's hopefully will continue. So
That's good.
so the only just next thing we need from you, there'll obviously be some things like this from to review as they become ready. And then the other thing is that as our first year comes up, we might ask for some input in terms of priorities as we move into the 25-26 year in terms of whether it's staying in these areas or are there other areas of the climate action plan that might be more of interest or more focused. So we'll be looking for input on that as our next fiscal year starts.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, thanks.
Good information. Okay, Ken, presentation on how assessment evaluation changes occur. Hi, Becky.
Hi,
Assessing
good evening.
101.
Yeah, assessing 101. So David is gonna pull my PowerPoint up and I got a clicker. So hopefully I don't click too fast through this. Which way this way? This way. Okay, there we go. Okay, so assessing 101. I will try to keep this short and sweet because I love talking about assessing and I can talk for hours, but I will try not to. So
Is there a
what,
test at the end of this?
huh?
Is there a test at the end of this?
That's a good idea. I'll train you all as assessors.
Well, you
So,
don't have to check, you don't have to go test the chair. We're all set.
okay. Okay. So what does an assessor do? So basically what I do is I value all the properties, real and personal, within the limits of Kennebunkport in accordance with the Maine Constitution. The Maine Constitution states that all taxes, real and personal, get assessed by the state and shall be apportioned and assessed equally accordingly to the just value. So the state defines just value as market value. So what is market value? Market value is the price that property would sell for on an open market, a willing buyer and seller. They have limitations, timing on the market. And buyers and sellers are the ones that determine the market value. With the help of real estate agents and appraisers. Sorry, I will try to stay here so my voice doesn't go in and out. An assessed value is based on, see now I'm blanking out, for the purpose of taxes. So I calculate assessed value for the purposes of taxation and I determine it based on market and trends. Sorry, this is different for me. Why market value and assessed values don't equal each other. Market value is reflective of the market, which can change very drastically and rapidly. We've seen that since COVID, how quickly the markets can change. Assessed values, we try to stay more conservative because, and consistent with properties. If we go a little too crazy and try to keep up, one, we can't. The state of Maine does not allow us to what they classify as chasing sales. So if a sale comes across my desk at $6 million and I have it assessed at 300,000, I can't automatically assume that that house is now worth 6 million because that's what the market states it is. The state has me look at all of the factors and I can't just raise it because, well, we had a property sell for 6 million, so it must be worth 6 million because that's what somebody was willing to pay. It's not always cut and dry like that. There could be other circumstances that I am not aware of. I do check when sales come in, as part of my process. I do review the sales as they come through my desk or over my desk to see if I have accurate information, because that is very important when valuing properties, that my data is accurate. So I do review information to make sure that is accurate. With values, we use mass appraising. This is the part where it gets most confusing for people, because when people are looking at the market, they look at appraised values, they look at one house sale. As an assessor, I have to look at what one sale does to the entire community, because I have to look at the community as a whole. And we categorize them differently. So we have waterfront properties, we have capes, we have ranches, we have all different types of properties. So I look at sales as they come across and say, okay, well, this was a cape in this area. I look at this to see where it falls with what I have it assessed for. And then I look at other capes in the area and see. And that's how adjustments can be made based on what the market is indicating. But, yep, sure.
How often do you make those adjustments? You say the adjustments.
So I keep track of all the sales. So as the sales come in monthly, I look at all of them. I review each sale for each property and I look at the information. Luckily now, there's a lot of information that I can find online, realtor.com, things like that. So I can look. So I do look through the real estate listings to verify that the bedroom count is accurate, that I have the same bedroom count, bathroom count. Unfortunately, sometimes people finish areas of their house without getting a permit, and permitting is what triggers the assessor to go look at a particular property. So I will check and see if I see adjustments, or if I see, let's say they're advertising 5 bedrooms, but I only have 4 bedrooms listed. I go through and I verify that it is actually 5 bedrooms, and I can make that adjustment to it. It's not chasing the sale, it's making sure that all of my data is accurate, so I have a better accurate
Okay,
assessment.
so if I'm living in a neighborhood, there's also area based.
Yes, yes, location.
If I'm in a given neighborhood and I have a cape and there are 5 other capes there, all the same size, all the number of bedrooms. One of those capes sells for a considerably higher number. Does everybody get assessed that year, or what happens?
No.
Quickly these assessments.
So in order to change an assessment, I
Why
need,
don't we go through the presentation?
Okay.
Oh,
I
okay,
think
I'm sorry.
some of it is gonna be covered.
All right.
That's okay. So, that's all
All
right.
right.
I told you I like to talk about it. I would just talk without a PowerPoint.
Who's asking all the questions?
Okay. Okay.
Put that in the record.
Because I'm sitting on this side.
There you go. Must be something about the chair.
Yeah.
So mass appraisal, so how I build an assessment in town is with building blocks in essence. So what I've done here is I've attached a property record card. So what I've circled at the bottom is land. So this is where the land value comes in. And you can see that I have, the use type, what type of property it is, land units. So this particular one is in a farm and forest because the minimum acreage is 3 acres. And you can see the 13680 square feet. So in the town of Kennebunkport, the base lot or the house lot value is always assessed higher because that is your most valuable piece, because that is where you can build a house. Not necessarily location on the lot, but you have enough acreage within that zone. So that's always assessed a little bit higher. Anything above the zoned requirements for square footage is assessed now as excess acreage. And in Kennebunkport, we assess our excess acreage at $5,000 an acre. However, we do have multipliers based on the location and neighborhood. So what John was talking about, which would adjust the $5,000. So some areas in town, a $5,000 acre is actually $6,000 or $7,000 if you're down by the beach, because the location there is more valuable. You go further out to, you know, I was going to say Wilds District Road, you know, Cole Benson, things like that. the $5,000 might end up being a $4,000 an acre because of the location. So things get adjusted based on the location and if there are any issues with the lot. So you can see this one has a note that says topo. So most likely that's either got big contours, drops, or it could just be water. The second page of the property record card. Now, this is all of the factors that go into building an assessment on a house. So you can see that there's a style, code, model, grade, stories. Now, the biggest drivers of the assessment will be the style type of the home, the grade of the home, and then the overall condition. And the condition is not circled because it's in a separate section, which is where the year built is, and you can see effective year built. That's where and you can see the depreciation code says G, so that's overall good. So that's the overall condition of a property, especially one that's maybe been renovated, an older home that's been renovated. The overall depreciation code can change based on if they've done improvements. Because what you need to remember is if somebody owns a 2013 house and they've rebuilt it or renovated it or something, it's still a house that was built in 2013. So the overall condition can change, but not the year built.
So this
Okay.
part, I would say, is important.
Yes.
Because we don't go, hey, that house sold for 6 million, so that must be what it's worth. Instead, we would have to look at what kind of house it was, the land it was on, and if we're gonna make an adjustment, we have to make it for all those types of houses or all the land in that neighborhood. And so we have to see some trends that show
Right.
it wasn't just that house, but each one of those has a number assigned to it. And so if it's an oil burner, how many bathrooms it has, you know, all those things, it's a very long formula. If you looked at the calculation, add up to the value, but when she makes a change, she has to go back to these base value and change the base values.
To do a mass appraisal change. Now, for an individual sale, if like they have 5 bedrooms and I only have 2 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms listed, this is where I would make the change on this particular property. And based on the bedroom count would change their assessment. Now, again, it wouldn't bring it up to maybe what it sold for, but it would make the assessment more accurate because my data is more accurate. So I do look at the listings for accuracy. Okay. And then how the sales data guides us. So past sales give us measurable trends, but it is important to have a good set of sales when determining value changes. One sale is not a measurable trend. So one sale in a particular neighborhood, like if one Cape sold in a neighborhood for $6 million, does not mean all the Capes in the neighborhood would be changed to that. I would like to see more than one sale in a neighborhood to change it. So I don't change values massively until I have the documentation to support it.
But what factor are you changing? The value of the land then? Because the buildings are the same. Nothing changes in the buildings. They've all got 5 bedrooms. They're all identical.
They'd have to be like, literally identical,
My
right?
hypothetical,
Yes,
I'm trying to understand
right.
how the system
So
works.
they're all the same houses
Yeah.
and one sold for 6 million. And so we're assuming that it would be the land, not necessarily. So I would look, one sale would not have me look at that neighborhood. If there were several sales that occurred and they were all 6 million or 5 million or now 4 million, I would look at this and being like, okay, there's something here. What is it? Is it the land that, because the location is valuable, or is it the Capes? So I would look at that particular subdivision and make a determination, but it's not like, oh, I have just put the value here. I'd have to put the value, if we determined it was land, I would put it in the land and make an adjustment to the land value, but then I would have to run the test of all of the properties.
That would raise all the boats.
Correct. And would that create any inequities? Because how would that play out? And I can't answer that until we
Do what ifs.
do the what ifs and have to run it through a test. So basically, real estate markets can be influenced by economic conditions, interest rates, social trends, all those kind of things. So the historical sales give us footprints in the sand, but it gives us clues on to where we might head next. Of course, nothing is certain. I can't predict the future. I just go with what I have that comes in front of me and pretty much tries to do the best I can with that information. The challenge with changing assessments is I have to have sufficient data. I just don't pull numbers out of the air and go, okay, well, that looks good, this looks good. I have to run it through and make sure, because if I don't, and there is an accuracy, then we'll get abatements and we'll have people complaining about their assessments or the volatility of assessments going up and then having to drop down because I'm too aggressive and don't have the data to back it up. So most assessors are very cautious, and we want to make sure that we have all the accurate information. We're not one to be willy-nilly on things. The other challenge is that when the state looks at what we do for sales, they're 2 years behind us. So right now, the sales that they are looking at are from 2023, and we're in 2025. So the market was very different then. The market was very hot since COVID, and it was trending upwards. So that's where our assessments are going that way slowly. But the problem is that once they go up, things eventually either, level off or go down. So the best we can do is make sure that we have the sales to accurately go up and then watch, because what goes up could go down. But again, it's being conservative about doing it, not just going without the proper data. And without it, then it causes inequities. Unfortunately, sometimes assessors' math is not easy. People think, well, can't you just just raise everybody 15%? And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, because once you start going down and breaking down different properties, that's when you start to see your inequities. And the state does look at those as well when we get audited. It's not going. Thank you.
I did it.
Thank you. Okay, so the assessor's annual calendar. So this is what I do every year, and monthly I go through all the sales. I have to report all my sales and assessments to the state of Maine. I do that on a yearly basis. I analyze all the sales that come through by neighborhood, type, circumstances of sale. I determine and I help determine which sales are good or arm's length transactions and others that are unqualified. If a family member or an estate sells a property, the state automatically disqualifies those as qualified sales, so they disqualify them, so they're not good and they're not part of my sales analysis. So so I look at those because we do see sales that come in that, either to an abutter or it wasn't on the open market, things like that, family members, stuff like that, they become unqualified. So they don't become part of my sales analysis. They're not a part of the sale. I know that there was a big sale in Kennebunkport, the $12 million sale, that everybody was like, wow, it was on the market for 90 minutes and it sold. The abutter purchased the property. So the state would automatically disqualify that sale because an abutter purchased it. So that sale, though it occurred now, we won't be looking at that for 2 years. It won't actually be part of a sales analysis because it would be disqualified because the abutter purchased the property. Okay, so.
An association or
Mhm.
if not association, but if a company buys,
Because the company owns the property next door.
no, but in
Okay.
general.
In general, no, if a company purchases it, if the sale is a viable sale, then that would be fine. A company can purchase a property, a house, whatever. If it's been on the open market, and that's what realtor.com helps. I can see if it was an open market. I get notified every time a new house goes on the market in Kennebunkport. So I try to keep aware of those in case it doesn't, and then a sale comes through and I didn't know it was on the market.
So the house has to have gone through MLS.
Mhm.
So.
I would think so. 90 minutes,
No, I'm just saying, if
Yeah.
I wanted to sell my house at a fair market value
Yes.
to John
And
as a
okay.
private
Mhm.
transaction, but he paid market price,
Mhm.
it would get thrown out as a sale
if it was
because it didn't go through a real estate agent.
not
Publicly available.
Yeah, I would look at that individually. I would look at the circumstances. It's hard to say because technically, no, if it didn't hit the open market. But if it, yeah,
Well, no, you could.
Yeah, I
I'm just saying
mean-
It might have sold at market value. It's just never was a public sale.
right,
You wouldn't know.
right, yeah,
That's true. That's
right. Unless there was an appraisal or something done, yeah,
That's the reason.
yeah,
It's got-
yeah,
Right.
right.
All right.
I inspect all the new construction for the building permits. That's how I get notified of new houses being built or renovations, because those all have a change in value. I update all the exemptions and then, of course, once I go through all of the review process of the building permits, things like that, I determine the value for the upcoming tax year. And then those values are all locked in place for April 1st. So right now I'm working on my April 1st, 2025 values. So they should be ready for a commitment. Doing pretty good.
Past April 3rd.
I know. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You can't do it all on April 1st. I'd be very busy. I'd have to, yeah. I feel like you have a question.
No,
Okay, okay.
I'll let you finish. I have.
Okay,
questions.
that's fine. Okay. So.
Forget it. So
Okay.
good luck.
Okay, that's okay. So the state, this is what the state does every year. So they annually review all my sales in a sales ratio. They review the circumstances of the sales. They use my data, all my assessed values to determine for the valuation for the state and the funding formulas, which I do not get involved in. And when they look at my sales and the assessment, they develop an annual certified ratio along with a quality rating. So basically what that is they look at the sales, they look at what my assessments are, they do their mathematical equation and they say, okay, your values currently are at 82% or 90% or 110% of what your values are. So they determine that based on the sales. And then the quality rating they give us tells us how equitable our assessments are. So quality rating under 20 is good. 20 and higher, the state requires the town, the municipality to do a reval. So right now our quality rating is at 14, so that's not, it's good. It's about right. Obviously, as you know, our assessments we're at certifying at 90% this year, so we're not at 100%. But that's still pretty good. But our assessments are equitable based on our quality rating. So that's a good thing because you can have 100%, but your quality rating could be 30. And that's not good because that means your assessments are not equitable with similar properties. So you want a low quality rating because you want your assessments to be good. You also want, you do want a good ratio as well. But if you had to pick one or the other, the quality rating is the best.
Go over the ratio again. I'm not getting the ratio.
The developed parcel ratio.
So you said the 90, the certified ratio.
Right, so the state determines, sends me a form and says, this is what we've developed. After our audit of you, we're gonna say that this is what your ratio is. So they determined that our ratio is 82%. That's what they that's what they said that we had. The state allows a 10% deviation because.
So
Okay,
back, so the
okay.
certified ratio is the percent of assessment compared to the market value. So they're saying right now, we are not meeting market value. We're at 82%
Yes,
of the market value. And keep in mind, they're looking at all the sales. So they're kind of coming up with an
average of the town,
of all the towns.
correct.
So what they do is they say, overall, you're at 82%.
Mhm.
And then they let us certify up to 10% higher than that. So that's how we get to 90.
Would that $12 million sale be in their numbers and not in ours?
No, it won't be in there, no.
Throw that one out.
Mhm,
And they're looking 2 years behind us.
mhm. Yes,
and our assessments are 2 years behind us, but you're keeping them up to date, so we're a little bit out of
Correct,
sync.
correct. Yes.
So even there, so our 14%, our rating of 14
Mhm.
is, they're looking 2 years in the rearview mirror, and ours are, or not, the rating of 82%, they're looking 2 years in the rearview mirror, and our numbers are based on what our market's seeing today, as best as you can see.
Okay, repeat that question.
Well, you're 82%.
Well, you just,
When they develop the certified ratio,
Right.
they're looking at sales from 2 years ago.
correct, yes,
But you are keeping track of things in the
Correct.
current period.
correct,
The one thing you're not doing is necessarily changing to the market until
correct,
you see a trend.
correct.
So what you
Okay.
give the state, what they're using is our 2 years ago numbers, what
Yeah.
we're saying.
So what the state does, yes, every year, they're looking at sales from 2 years ago. They're asking me for current data. So I give them my current data. They want to know my assessed values as of last year, April 1st of 2024.
Okay.
So they're asking for so they ask for all of those sales then, but their analysis is from 2 years of sale, 2 years ago. So their sales are 22 and 23 for this current year that they developed the 82%.
So the state will force us to do a reassessment if we're over 20.
If our quality rating goes above 20, they require it, or if our ratio falls below 70 or above 110.
Okay, so they want you to go one way or the other.
Mhm.
Okay, so.
Because they don't want the values to be, they give us this range.
Yeah, they-
Correct.
Okay.
Correct,
Can I-
which is why we did the reval in 2022, because we were at, I think it was like 71%, and we were due for one they do recommend every 10 years. And that's what we were gonna do prior to COVID, and then we stopped because we didn't know what would happen with the market, and we didn't wanna be aggressive and go up, and then have something happen, and then have to go down, because if high values mean a low mill rate, lower values mean a higher mill rate.
Right.
So if we had gone aggressive and went up and the market dropped out or something, that mill rate would go up and our assessments would go down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I just threw that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you say they, what department of the state are we talking about?
Main Revenue Services, Property Tax Division.
You must know them well.
No, I'm just,
Do you want names?
no, I don't want to name it. I'm just.
Oh, no.
Next slide.
Next slide, summary and conclusion. Markets drive assessments, not the other way around. Assessors are key to maintaining equity and consistency. Data is essential for accurate valuations. Understanding the process and market trends do help people understand and manage expectations. Accurate valuations and good quality ratings ensure fair taxation. And the appeal process is available for those who wish to discuss their assessment if they feel their assessment is too high. There are means for people to file for an abatement or a review of their assessments.
One last simple.
I've got one last simple
Okay.
question. So just the $1 million question I always get is, and when someone asked me if I sell my house for, for higher than the assessed value, obviously, do I inherit the old assessed value, or is it set when I sell the house? And the old assessed value is what stays, right?
Mhm.
It may get adjusted in time,
Yes.
but that in time is measured in years, not months.
Yes.
All right, good.
Yes.
Just wanted to be
Mhm.
clear on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So-
No,
Go ahead.
sorry, so,
But adjustments can be made sooner if the sales show it. So if there's a particular area that in town that's selling. So for instance, I've had a new subdivision. It has 9 lots in it. And recently, about 6 of the lots have sold. I had the properties assessed at about 180,000, the land, because there were no sales, didn't really know where they were gonna be. The sales now have gone to 400, 500, and 600. They've just been, that subdivision has completely been readjusted because of those sales
For this tax year.
for this tax
Okay,
year.
coming up.
Yes,
Quickly.
yes.
And-
If I have the sales
Let's have
to,
the data.
yes, if I have the data to support it.
Perfect.
Right, because what I don't want is not to have the data and have somebody come in and go, well, why'd you do this?
We don't need.
Exactly.
So I have
Okay.
one question.
Okay,
When do you anticipate another
No.
full revow?
that's a really
Roughly.
good,
In
that's a
several years?
really good
It's
question.
expensive.
It is very expensive. I think we're gonna need one. In 2009 was the last big measure and list that we did. I would say probably within the next 5 years, the town or the board would like to think about doing another big measure and listing, which means that you hire a company that goes out to visit every single property to make sure, because the 2022 reval was a statistical update. So they just went and visited the properties that had sold within an 18-month period. So they didn't visit all of the properties. So obviously, to make sure that the data is accurate, it's good to be out there because unfortunately, some people don't get building permits or things change and we weren't aware of property property changes or remodels or things like that. Probably within the next 5 years, I would suggest that it's
Okay.
something to look at. But it really is hard to say because if the market calms down or evens out, these values that right now are behind the times might come right back up and be right where they need to be. That's the difficult thing is to predict is where it's gonna head.
I just
You
didn't
know.
want to hear you say next year.
Becky, the valuation that we hear, so we get a number from
Mhm.
you and Lori,
Mhm.
from the state.
Mhm.
And so that is that valuation number that you're talking about.
That's the value that the state comes up with. They determine what they think or where they assume our value should be based on the information from 2 years ago.
And that's what we use for.
No,
No.
no,
That's
you use
her
what
number.
I,
That's what they use for all our formulas. So it's like
Okay.
revenue sharing for school, for
If you
county.
guys would have let me finish.
oh,
But my big brother's here.
They're always ready for you to be wrong.
Question really quick.
Becky, thank you very much.
all right, you're welcome.
You've been very helpful.
Thank you.
Do you have office hours?
No
Professor?
questions. I knew all the stuff anyway.
11, review of short-term rental ordinance inspection requirements.
We have Derek Stevens, our code enforcement officer. If you haven't had a chance to meet Derek.
I've met a couple of them.
Uh,
Good.
So we have been doing our short-term rental inspections. The ordinance says that we need to do one every 5 years. And so our staff have been out there, meeting and greeting people. And so, Derek is here to just kind of walk you through what that inspection requires.
All right, so
There we are at the beach inspecting kayaks.
And where they like.
there we go. All right. So the requirements for short-term rentals, I'll just run through them pretty quickly here. So we got smoke alarms. So every short-term rental needs a smoke alarm. So you need one in each bedroom, outside of separate sleeping areas, immediate vicinity of the bedrooms. One additional story, if you have a 2-story, then one has to be on each story, including the basement, and if you have a habitable attic. So some people use the attic for office or something like that. We use carbon monoxide alarm. Usually it's where you have your fuel fired appliance. Usually it's in the basement, sometimes it's in the attic. Rarely around the bedrooms, but just in case there is a fuel fired appliance there, then you have one there. Fire extinguishers, of all the ones I inspected thus far, usually they have one, most of them have 2. And they have to be somewhere where most of them, they keep them in the kitchen. I've seen them in the kitchen and some in the bedrooms. So as long as you have when you do the inspection for this, as long as they have at least one fire extinguisher, they're good. Egress windows. So we're in the 2021 International Residential Code now. So egress windows, also known as emergency escape rescue openings. They must have a minimum net clear and open of 5.7 square feet. So that gives you 24 by 20. So when you open up the window, fully open, that gives room, that 5.7 square feet, that gives room for you to get out or the fire department to come in to rescue you. That's why, and that's been in effect for years now. So anytime that there's a short rental application is submitted to the property, the staff, we certify the short-term rental application that the proposed short-term rental property complies with all short-term rental standards, and that's in our ordinance, and it also complies with the building code requirements.
The smoke alarms have to be wired.
No, I'm gonna get to that in a few minutes. So smoke alarms, so you can have them interconnected, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connected, or they can be hardwired, okay? So the top picture there, those are the Wi-Fi. I took a picture of these because these are what I have in my home, because my home is old. I have an old house. Oops. Oh, it's not moving. So this is just, it'll go back to another picture, but this is the location. It's just a quick place of where you should locate your smoke alarms. So in each bedroom, outside the sleeping areas, basically what we already went through, you don't want to place them closer than 10 feet from a cooking appliance because it's going to go off every time. So if you're a cook or you're cooking something, the steam will make them go off. You want to high on the walls or ceilings, but you don't want them too high where you can't perform your maintenance on them. You don't want to place them near windows or doors or draft, near a fan. You definitely don't want to put them in a bathroom. Okay. Yeah, well, so in this one, so the one on the right, I'm sorry, the one on the left, that's a smoke, that's your normal smoke, or that's a smoke detector, but that one particular, so you have it's different types. So you have that one, which is, I think that's the Wi-Fi one that I took. So you have ones in some houses where you push it when you test it, it'll go to a security company and they come out. And so you got to let them know, like, call them up, like, don't come out, we're just testing it. Because if not, some of these houses down on Goose Rocks, they have like a whole force comes out. And we've done that a couple of times. And you have your CO, and they have the combos, smoke and CO detectors that you can buy instead of getting just one CO. So I have the CO detectors and smoke in my house down in the basement because I have my boiler down there. So this is the wireless detector. And that's what I was saying. This is what I have in my home. They're very affordable. I have 6 of them plus the CO detector. It was under $100. You can get them from Home Depot, Lowe's. I got mine off Amazon. Very easy you marry them up. They give you the instructions how to, because when one goes off, they all have to go off. That's the interconnectivity of it. Now, portable fire extinguishers. Like I said before, you only need one, but some people put them, they get more than one. As long as we come in for an inspection, as long as we can see where they're located. And this is just a quick rundown of the types. You have the type 2A, you have type 1A, or type 2A, I'm sorry. Some of them are really tiny. Usually when you go in the house, that's the first thing that the short-term rental owner, they want to show you the fire extinguisher, first thing they want to show you. Look, I have my fire extinguisher. So I was like, cool, all right, well, let's see what else you got. All right, now we go to the egress windows. So we talked about the size already, the 5.7 square feet, the 24 by 20 inches respectively when you open them up. Location, basically a bedroom only needs one per bedroom for egress, all right? And the clearance, no obstructions, both inside or out, to ensure that you can open them quickly. If there's an emergency, you don't want to be there trying to move a dresser or something, trying to get out or trying to get the fire department in to give you help. And on the right, those are the different types of egress windows that's available. So you can get the encasement ones, the ones with the little crank, you crank it open and it swings out. That gives you your 5.7 square feet. So different types can help you out there. It's just, how you want to place it and what's your affordability. So these are different types of egress windows. You have a single hung, your double hung, your casement, you have your sliders, your in-swing vertical, awning, hopper, and the tilt and turn. I haven't seen the tilt and turn. I've seen the in-swing. Also for egress windows, you can also use the sliders. That's just like your sliders going out to your deck or something like that. You can have those in there. Also, if you're trying to rent out your basement, that's when you have your, I just slipped my mind, what is it called? Thank you.
What is it? Okay.
Well, you can use a skylight to egress, but you know, then you have to figure out how you're gonna get up there. But you can use those. Window well, there we go. That's what I was trying to think of. So you can use a window well, they put them in the basement. We just had a couple of people put them in off of Timber Way. One of the new houses that was being built, and they had a basement and they didn't have any other means of egress, so we had them put in, they had to not start over, but almost start over to put that window in. And I have the costs. There we go. So national average for egress window costs around $1,000 to $5,000 to install. And that's just a national average. So you can get them cheaper depending on, because you can get a window about $2,000, depending on what size what model you're trying to get. Then you have to figure out who's going to install it for you. Then that's the labor cost. So whoever you hire to do it, and you know, you can negotiate the price on there. And they do require, so they don't require permits if you keep in the window the same size. If you're gonna make the window bigger, then you require a permit, because now you're changing the seal, you might be changing the header size. So then we have to go in there and make sure that it's fine. So if you're changing the size and you get into the walls, that's when we need a permit. But if you're just changing out the same size window, you don't need a permit for that.
Or what, a replacement window.
Right, exactly. Help me out, David. Thank you. So there's just the importance of egress windows, like I said before, to exit quickly, safely, for the fire department to give you a hand, fire safety, obviously, and life-saving. These windows are designed to save lives by offering a secondary means. I should preface, go back a little bit and say, so you have a home, let's say you have a home with the bedroom window, some of the bedroom windows are a little bit lower on the ground. So if they're under 18 inches off the ground, then they have to be tempered.
They what?
They have to be tempered, like a safety glaze on.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't want you to fall through and it shatters and you get all cut up. So they have to be safety glazed. If it's over 18 inches, you're fine. And most of them are, but some people like the windows a little bit lower. Some of the older houses are like that. So all this information are references. All this information came from the 2021 Residential Code, the NFPA, our ordinance, and the 2021 Building Code. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, so I had asked if we could have this set up, because we had some questions from people down at the beach getting their short-term rental. So some people, a couple people that reached out, they were on the original, I guess, when they had pulled some residents together to get input, you know, for the short-term rentals, specifically for what was required at the beach. And so the question was, all of a sudden they have to make, I think smoke alarms I think that's already been done by most people. I think the issue comes in where now we're talking about egress windows on a lot of these older, smaller homes. And so I think there was confusion about why, you know, was this a change? Did the board request this? You know, is there a change in the original policy of how short-term rentals? So that was the feeling, is that something, that the board did something and then we changed something in the short-term rental policy. So I wasn't here for that. Their understanding is that this, you know, they can understand the smoke detectors, but egress windows is something that.
Shouldn't they be grandfathered?
No, it's a liability issue. So if there's an issue and there's a fire and you got a window that's not egress and you God forbid somebody die because they can't get out or fire department can't get in.
But you're saying it's a liability issue because the town is giving a short-term rental license. So you're saying that the town is taking on this liability?
No, it'd be the owners.
So you're not going through,
So they can't short-term if like they don't have an egress window.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they've been given a grace period for the short term.
I think it's 1 year,
Yeah, I think so, yes.
from what I understand.
That's correct. So the ones that the reason this is now just starting to come to a head is we are now actually inspecting the short-term rental licenses. Before that wasn't occurring. We were just accepting the application. We've gone through a transition as a department. So we now are actually doing the inspections now.
So what you're saying is an older home that does not fall within your rules, regulations, cannot rent.
Yeah, that room should not be slept in,
It's really about.
is the egress.
It's about the bedrooms for the egress.
Right.
So if one has a window, you can rent that. If one
Okay.
doesn't have a window, you couldn't
You
rent that.
couldn't.
And so
do
we're
that.
giving people that have these older homes that aren't in compliance, we're giving them well over a year. We don't want to interrupt the
But
season.
you're making them
Aware
then
of it.
change their
Yep.
windows.
Yep, we're making them
well,
aware of it.
yeah, and
Like-
it's not so much
Okay.
the change of the window. So it is a change of the windows, but it's
Right.
also change of the siding and everything else.
Oh,
because
sure.
this
It's
isn't.
gonna be expensive.
Yeah, so it's gonna be expensive, but can you help me out in terms of like, so where the confusion is where did this come about from, right? So what are we going back to in the short-term rental policy that says
We
they have
just
to have
started
egress windows? So for example, I know you're going out and, you're just doing the inspections now, that why it could have been the lag, but these people were here and participated in the inception, and they don't, their recollection is not that this was part of that doings. And then such, are we picking and choosing? For example, we have changes for stairs and we have chairs, people can fall downstairs if they're not at the right pitch. So, you can have a liability across anything. And so I'm very concerned that we're putting, I'm concerned about this.
Mhm. So if we go back to that slide, I think it was the first slide. We go back to that. I think it's the second actually, after the first one. So if we keep going back.
Keep going.
Right there. You'll see that there is an asterisk mark at the very end. That paragraph comes right from chapter 129-7. And you'll see the last sentence there. It says the building code requirements. So that is the language that was adopted by the town at the time. Again, we are not making the residents have to go up to, everything has to be building code compliant. We care about life safety. That is our main goal here, is making sure that people who come to Kennebunkport have a safe means of egress to escape. Heaven forbid there is a tragedy that does occur. So that's really the focus point. It's that, can we get them, if there is a fire that occurs on the property, that they have a means of egress, similar to what a hotel, motel, hospitality, any hospitality that's in Kennebunkport, you have to have a means of egress, and if you don't have a commercial sprinkler system. So that's the same logic
So
behind.
I'm
this.
sorry, Galen,
Yeah.
what is 129-7?
That's the rental
It's the bottom.
standards of the ordinance.
That's the
Okay, so
last one.
that calls out that we have to meet.
It's the
So
ones
it says,
above.
and with
The
building
one
codes.
through the 4 come from 129-7.
And then that and with building codes. So the building codes is what Derek
Oh,
cited
so
at the
1
very
through
end.
4 comes through 129-7.
Correct.
So,
Again, we're not saying GFI, everything. We're not saying the whole structure needs to be brought to code. It's just life safety for access egress from the structure.
so when this was put together, was that clear?
I
So-
wasn't here so
Yeah,
much.
I apologize for the question. It was-
There.
Yeah.
I would say that if you're gonna have a piece of property and you're gonna rent it, short-term rental, if you have to have an egress. I mean, not only is it a liability for the homeowner, it could potentially be a liability to the town, if you want to get into liability issues. We did this with Eco Maine. If we issued a license and they don't have an egress window. I'm sure some lawyer is gonna come back after the town and say, why'd you issue this license after you inspected it?
Well, I would say, would the short-term rental person put on, or would the town give a license and say,
The town's.
this town that, I'm sure, so I'm just shooting from the hip here. But the town would issue a short-term license and have on their certificate that's visible is that this building is not up to the current safety codes
I
of
think
the
that's
town.
irresponsible. You're talking about life and death. I would not be for that. I think that would be irresponsible for the town to do. I agree with you. You can't do every little nit and pick, but this is a matter of life and death safety. Every hotel is required to have this. Why would we not also require our short-term rentals?
Okay, so I do think, so there are things, okay. Can we give people a little bit more leeway? Because I know that there's issues with contractors, there's issues with supplies, things are.
Yeah, we're giving them a year. I think that's a reasonable time frame for them to get a contractor lined up and work with us on that.
No, people are trying to get houses built and it's taken they're supposed to be done within the year and it's 18 months. I'm telling you, subcontractors are not showing up. There's issues. There's still
Mary
stuff
Beth, I just think that this issue is moot to bring up. If you want to have a short-term rental and you want to have a bedroom that you're going to rent out, if you need to have an egress window for those occupants. If you don't have it, then you don't short-term rental it. I'm sorry. You can't be having people
No,
sleeping.
It's not about a window in the
It
bedroom.
is. It's about an egress.
It's an egress window. So that means that there's a window in a bedroom, which there probably is. These are smaller windows. These are smaller houses.
Those
now they
houses
have to
can
go
take
in.
those windows.
The-
You'd have to show me a house that can't take this window.
I
want to go
we
see
just
it.
had to redo our house to come up to code and
Then-
we had to change all our windows in our house that had bedrooms to get access. It's a thing. I'm telling you, it's a thing. So I'm just trying to say, I've heard from people that do short-term rentals. They were involved at the beginning of this. They're confused. I'm very grateful for the clarification. This 129-7 help. I'm just saying back to the board, is there a way? I'm not trying to argue with you guys. I'm just trying to see, and I understand the importance of it. I'm just trying to see there's real problems. The town did not inspect these things for how many years, and we were okay giving licenses. So I'm just saying, can we give a little bit more leeway? Can we ask, if somebody comes back, can we give them more time if they made a considerable effort and they can't get it done?
No.
Case by case basis, maybe that's legit.
I think a year is plenty of time. That's how I'm looking at it.
But you're not giving
Yeah,
them
but
a
don't you
year.
think if they come back and say, look, I got a guy, he's coming in another month or two, can I have a month? And I'm sure the department would say, sure, go ahead.
Case by case basis.
Exactly.
We could certainly.
What I feel bad about are the ones who aren't grandfathered, who have been renting for, 20 years and now they can't. That's my thing.
Well, we're still allowing them to rent though, right?
But again, it's probably just a few.
Are
I'm
you,
sure it's not many.
There's nobody that's grandfathered.
I have a question. How many
Well, he
people
said no.
There's no.
are not
Right.
compliant with these windows?
I believe there are 5 to 7 right now that we
5
know
to
of.
7.
Yeah, and we've talked to a lot of them and they've agreed. They said, yep, okay, thank you for letting us know it's a year that we have to make it work.
Yeah.
Has anybody asked if they're having a hardship problem to replace these windows?
I have not heard of any, no.
Okay.
If they're renting out at the beach, they're not,
having-
there's no hardship putting in windows.
So I do want to I understand what everybody's saying and I'm just trying to clarify. And I think this conversation, because I know people are listening and I think this conversation is good to give clarity, for our residents and stuff. But I just want to say, as somebody that had rented at the beach when we rented our family home, I know on the board, we've said this a number of times and it's come out of different points of view. But there are people that, like my husband and I, and his sister, it was a family home. And we basically made money, put it in a kitty so we could take care of the house so that someday we'd be able to retire here. So there is that situation. There's some people at the
sure.
beach, they're not making money hand over fist. It is a very short rental season. There's only so much you can charge. And I know there's other people charging exorbitant fees, but still, I want to be cognizant of what we're doing. And so if you guys could give, if people do come and need some help, because I do know what builders and stuff and contractors, there have been issues down there. And so I'm grateful to hear that, you know, we'll work with people and hopefully keep them in the rental cycle, because that would mean that, you know, if we lost our rental season, that would be huge, you know?
And I want to clarify that. They can still rent for that season. We're not telling them
Right,
board it up.
I understand that, yeah.
But if they don't make any attempt, then they don't get it.
Okay,
So,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you.
thank you.
We have a hand raised in the Zoom audience.
Okay,
Hi, this is Lisa and Roger Miller. So we had contacted Mary Beth. So we inherited Roger's parents' home at Goose Rocks Beach. And it's like, we like to joke, we didn't inherit any funds to maintain it. So we do rent it for, as Mary Beth said, it's a short season, it's 8 weeks. So a couple of things. One is just about the process. So I was one of the parties that was involved when the town was considering enacting the short-term rental ordinance. So process-wise, you have a map of every short-term rental owner in town, and you have a list of all the permits. We had not received any information about the change in the requirements of the inspection. So communication in the process is one thing. Secondly, what is being imposed or requested as part of the inspection is at variance with the short-term rental ordinance that you passed. So section 129.7 standards, when it talks about complying with smoke alarms, nowhere does it say anything about them being interconnected or hardwired. It just says that smoke alarms need to be installed in each bedroom, outside each separate sleeping area, and on each additional story of the dwelling. Per fire safety codes and national standards, you only need building additional smoke detectors, carbon monoxide alarms on additional stories. So if you have a single story unit, you don't need to have them. They don't recommend that they be interconnected. We have a very small house with 3 bedrooms very close together, and literally we have 6 smoke detectors in about a 10-foot length. So asking for some of these additional standards, I think, is a bit much. And with regard to the egress windows.
I don't believe that was a requirement. If you have smoke alarms, they don't have to be wired, do they? No, you can put a regular smoke alarm in, so that's not an issue. Okay, go ahead.
It's clear, and okay, that's good, because that was not clear to us.
Checklist says it is.
The checklist in the inspection says that it is. So what they're inspecting to versus what's in the ordinance are not consistent. That's what I wanted to raise. So if you look at section A1 of 129.7, A1 is inconsistent with what they're inspecting to. And also, so these houses all have existing certificates of occupancy. So we were always under the impression that if you had not modified your home and not done a remodel, that your existing certificate of occupancy was valid. So the change to the egress windows, which we understand the reason for and believe that it's wise, it's about the timing and the process, because it's very expensive. So we have windows in every one of our bedrooms, and we also have 3 additional egresses from our 1-story home. And we have not yet been inspected. We have not been notified that we're not in compliance. And we have not been notified that we have a 1-year grace period. So a lot of this is about process and communication. We're trying to meet with contractors to find out what it's going to cost us. But because of the shapes and the sizes of the egress windows, it's going to require cutting into a 1959 home to change the window casement openings. And I feel like I'm going to enter into this old house where we open it up and we have what looks like a simple, as you say, several $1,000s cost is significantly more, because you have shingling, you have sheetrock, you have painting, you have changing window treatments, etc. So it's just not that simple. And most of the older homes at the beach are homes that families who have been coming there for forever are trying to hold on to. We're not the wealthy people that are building the $4, $5, $6 million homes. We're just trying to stay at the beach. So we'd like to ask you to take a look at, one, please review the ordinance in its detail against what we're being inspected against. And then and then create a process and a communication method so that we know exactly what is expected and what the deadline is, so we can make a determination as to whether or not we can afford to continue to rent our house to offset expenses if we have to sell it, or if we can do the adjustments and stay in the short-term rental pool. And as you know, you've heard this, it's a feeder for people who want to retire in town. A lot of the people that have came to town as summer rentals and decided that they loved the place and they wanted to retire there. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. I know this isn't an easy topic, but I just wanted to say it's about process, it's about communication, and please review your ordinance against what people are being inspected against, because they're not consistent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we just need to clarify that, because I think, so is it or is it not? If a house has the smoke detectors and they're not interconnected or hardwired, do they have to be interconnected?
Galen?
Yeah.
So he's trying to pull up the reference for you, but in the building code, it does say that they have to be interconnected.
They have to be?
Yes. And the reason for that, again, is if you are in let's say a fire happens in the kitchen, and you're in the bedroom, you want them to be interconnected so that person knows that they need to have a notice to leave the premise. So that's the reason why they're interconnected. That's the intent behind the building codes for the town that we've adopted.
I mean, that's for anybody, right?
It should be
That has a
any
house.
new build, they should be doing that as well. So like you have the new subdivisions that occur, they require them to be interconnected.
Okay.
And that's part of the building code. That's through the code enforcement officer.
So what you're saying is every rental now has to have smoke alarms that are interconnected.
Correct. Again, I'll get Derek to get that reference
And so
for you.
this
We can send it to
And
you.
I don't know if there's some leadway here, because, you know, so again, I'm just testing, right? So I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to test to see if we can find something. So for example, when Mrs. Miller was talking, you know, so literally there's so small bedrooms there and the hallway's right there, and you've got smoke alarms in the bedroom, the hallway, and for some that are a ranch, the kitchen's right there. So is there also a test of size of house that says, okay, you know, this is a 900 square foot house or a 1,300 square foot house, and, you know, they don't need to be interconnected because by the time two of them go off, everyone's going to be able to hear. So I didn't know if there's something that we could work with, you know, just some test of, I understand if you've got a McMansion,
Right.
you want them interconnected.
Or
you can't-
two-story, you
or
know.
two stories. But if you have a ranch and it's not a big thing, and if it's one of these beach bungalows,
Mhm.
and that's what I think we're trying to do, because this isn't for the new builds or the people that are buying and tearing down and building to
Right.
code. These are just for the old houses. And again, I am here because of that, right? I am here because we were able to rent our Dave's family's property, and I'm here because of that. You know, otherwise we would have had to sell, like Lisa's saying. You know, we're not of that ilk. You know, we were working people. So we would have had to sell the place. And then, so this is something that I want to make sure that we are giving those people that are in that pool this ability.
Mhm.
Maybe we should think about, and giving this back to you, making a change where, depending on the size of the home, the build of the home, I don't understand why they have to be connected in a smaller property. When an alarm goes off, it's pretty loud.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to go off in every room.
Right. Again, I'm not the code enforcement officer. I'll try to get that answer for you. That way.
But
we
I
can
mean,
find
it's
out.
something we
Yeah.
should work on so that we don't have, like, that they don't have to be all connected.
So according to, we're in the 2021 International Residential Code, that's international, that's all United States. That's the code that everybody follows throughout the United States. So according to that code in section 314.3, it's exactly what was written up there. In each bedroom, outside of your vicinity, and in a dwelling unit, including basements.
I
That's
have
what
no
we-
problem with
No,
that.
no, I understand, but that's what we have to go by the international, by the
Yeah,
code.
and that's not a problem, but
Right, they have to be interconnected no matter the size. That's what the code
Really?
says. Yes. So if it goes off in this bedroom, just because the fire is in this bedroom, it's gonna go off in the basement as well. That's why when we go and do these inspections, we test them to make sure they all go off at the same time. Some of them don't go off at the same time. Some of the new ones, you touch them, it'll say, they talk to you now, so they'll say something, and all of a sudden that one stops, then another one goes off. But those are the Wi-Fi ones.
But that's just for new builds, right? Or
No.
is that for older
No,
homes
You can
too?
put them, you can,
That's
yeah.
if you're renting. Yeah.
Okay,
just rentals,
Right.
okay.
okay.
That-
It is
Huh.
what it is. If that's
It is what it is, I guess.
Raised again.
Thank you.
Alan,
Are we all?
get somebody,
Who's that? Who?
Lisa's on.
Oh,
Zoom.
yeah.
Zoom.
You can speak, Lisa.
Hi, this is Roger. I did a little homework with this when we started to, and I agree with what Galen and Derek are saying meets the 2021 standards. However, when you look at the standards and read into them, it's recommended in houses that aren't new or haven't gone through an extensive renovation. 4 years ago, we bought all these extra smoke detectors, put them in, and they work. And we make sure they work and we do everything we need to. And they have a life expectancy. So after 4 years, now I have to replace them all to make them interconnected. And I don't believe that's the intent of the regulation. And I'd like to encourage, as Lisa was asking, when you review the whole ordinance, go back to the purpose, to go up to the 30,000-foot view, if you will, and remember what it says. I mean, what we're trying to do with this was a licensing program to enable the town to monitor and track the proliferation of short-term rentals. Within its borders includes modest performance standards intended to protect property owners, renters, and neighbors, along with limits to the numbers of short-term rentals within the community. So if this is $5,000 a window, I have to put 3 in. You're looking at, that's an estimate plus all the others in an older home, because I'd have to make a whole new window casing size to do this. Essentially, it's more than a year's rental income to change the windows. So it does put us back in that situation. And while they're correct, the new code says this is a residential home, zoned residential. So I just really would like the select board to go back, talk to some of the other members, look at the meeting minutes from 4 or 5 years ago when this was done, look at the intent of the ordinance. And most of it was, how many do we have, was the biggest part that went into this. And now we're really getting into a change that's going to cost homeowners potentially tens of thousands of dollars. And I believe there's way more than the 5 to 7 that they're indicating they found so far. When you talk to the realtors down there that manage these properties, they're scared. And that could put them out of business too. So just talk to your community, spend some time, don't rush to judgment in this for these requirements that were never there before this year and never really went through the ordinance to be approved. So thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any more questions?
No.
All right. Review and vote on the proposed warrant articles for the town meeting
So,
in June.
I'm sorry, before we jump, are we going to review this at all? Are we gonna pick a side group off to look at this, or what are we? I would propose, like Lisa and, like the Millers had suggested, that we sit down and look at this, because I do think it's
Thank you.
I do think it's gonna be I'm concerned about some of our residents here.
So I have a question. Is this a federal law for the egress, and is it a federal law or is it a state law for the smoke detectors to be connected? Because if it's a state or a federal law, there's nothing we can do about it.
The state adopts the IBC, or IRC.
I beg your pardon?
The state adopts the IRC, so they adopted the new version 2021, April 7th.
Okay. So,
But that's been in effect for years.
and
since I've
that,
been
but
doing it.
that's just for, this is for, short-term rentals? that they
No,
have?
this is for not short-term rentals, no.
Okay,
It's for all residential
building,
right.
properties, but because our short-term rental ordinance, because people are taking properties from a residential use where they're just living in it to a commercial use, they're renting it out. The ordinance had that they would abide by the building codes. So
okay,
we were talking about the life safety issues.
Right.
okay, thank you.
So with the state law.
No, but that's something that we could, like John just said, it's something that we could change, and that's what Lisa was pointing out.
Can we, even though it's a
No,
state?
because it's, so for example, and again, I get everybody's arguments and I'm not, and, you know, like the Millers also stated, you know, if people can get to that point, I'm sure people will make the change. But I think when we went through and what they just read, there's a short term, our short-term rental ordinance linked to that code. We chose to link that. We can unlink that. Now, do we want to do that? But I think, I think Roger Miller was speaking and he said, remember when all the discussions were about why are we having short-term rentals? And so I feel that it's not that it's a mission creep. It's just that this is an outcome that no one was really anticipating. And I really don't want to take a group of people, and I would have been one of them, that would have ended up selling because we would no way we didn't make enough money. We paid the taxes, we saved money for a new roof, for major things. We wouldn't have been able to handle this cost. And I'm dead serious. I know there's a lot of people at the beach that are in this bucket.
I would be for looking at this. I think if we came to a different agreement, I would want to see it in their rental agreements that says, by the way, we are not legally compliant with this code for egress. So people will know that. But I can appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's probably worth taking a look at.
Yeah, I agree.
David?
I think we stick with the code. I can empathize with these folks, but if you're going to rent out your property, you have an obligation to your renters to meet the safe life and safety codes. That's my position.
Or tell
and-
them that you're not.
Or not, right? I mean, I'm not
That's-
saying that
that's
I
what I'm
wouldn't
saying.
look at something.
We can
But I
find
think-
something.
I think the town has a lot of other issues right now
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
But the town has a lot of issues, but these are our residents and these people have a problem. And we are here representing them and we're having the discussion. This is real. This is affecting people's bottom line. This is something we need to talk about and see if there's a solution. I think if we had them write something in and then it's a personal choice. If they want to rent that house and they don't have an egress window, that's a choice that renter is making. Open-eyed, eyes wide open, and the town did not
but
set,
you're also putting our volunteer fire department at risk too.
but you're not requiring.
If they had to go in,
You're not requiring these houses to be upgraded right now.
you have to go, if one of those gentlemen or ladies had to go in and rescue someone in that bedroom in a fire and you didn't upgrade your windows so that they could get in to rescue your renter, then then you shouldn't be renting. That's my opinion.
But that situation exists right
Mary
now.
Beth, we're gonna move on, I think.
We're gonna
I'd like to move
really
on. We got
move
other
on
things. We have to get this
Right now, but
conversation.
we can talk about it some more
Yeah,
later.
let's keep
Okay.
discussing.
We can do that,
Let's keep
but
discussing.
we gotta move on and let's look at it at a later date, okay? We'll go back to this. Okay. Now, I'll say this again. Review and vote on proposed warrant articles for the town meeting in June. Hello, Tracy, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
So
good.
you're gonna help us with the warrant?
I am going to try, yes.
Okay.
So I handed out a new copy. The only thing that changed is that I updated the votes that the budget board took last week. So that's
Okay.
the only change from what you had previously received. So we're going to
approve the warrant articles tonight. And then at the next meeting, I'm going to bring back the final warrant with both the budget board votes, the selectmen votes, and then we're going to vote on the document as a whole. And that's what gets posted for town meeting.
Okay.
So that's the point that we're at. So we're going to go article by article and you'll take your votes. And I'll just give a quick summary of each one. Some of
At
them,
the end of the article, we'll take a vote.
yes, exactly.
Okay, I
Okay,
like that.
so we're going to start on page 3, which is Article 2. And this is just one of our general housekeeping articles, and it allows the select board to dispose of tax acquired property. It authorizes the treasurer to waive any foreclosure or tax lien mortgages recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds. It sets the interest rate for taxes if they're unpaid after the due date. It also sets the tax rate for abated taxes. And it also allows the tax collector to enter into the tax club, which is very popular with some of our long-term residents.
Okay, I need motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Article 2, second.
I have a first
Thank you.
and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed, 5-0.
All right, Article 3 is to authorize the selectmen to pay for tax abatements and applicable interest granted during the fiscal year of 25-26 from the overlay. It allows the selectmen to apply for, accept, and expand funding from the state of Maine, including Maine municipal revenue sharing and some road initiative programs, emergency management funds, snowmobile registration funds, basically any state funds that we are granted, it allows you to accept them as a board. And then also allows the select board to carry forward unencumbered surplus fund balances on June 30th, 2026.
Motion to approve Article 3.
Second.
I have a first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
All right, Article 4 is to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet committed. So that's when people make a payment for the next year ahead of time. And then also to accept easement deeds on behalf of the town and allow the board to accept unconditional and conditional gifts of money or property on behalf of the town.
Motion,
Motion to accept Article 4.
Second.
I have a first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
All right, Article 5 starts getting into the budget articles. So Article 5 states to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for general government program expenses. And the amount requested is $2,692,375.
Motion to adopt Article 5.
Second.
I have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
All right, Article 6 is to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for public safety program expenses in the amount of $4,075,244.
So moved.
Second.
First, second, any discussion on this?
For Article
Hearing
6.
none?
For Article
5-0.
6. Thank you.
Article 7, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for health and welfare program expenses in the amount of $1,199,927.
Motion to accept Article 7.
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Article 8 is to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the Public Works Program expenses in the amount of $1,631,308.
Motion to adopt Article 8.
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Article 9, to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for recreation, culture, contingency, and miscellaneous program expenses in the amount of $800,918.
Move to accept Article 9.
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Article 10 is to see what sum the town will vote to raise and appropriate for capital expense and reserve account and debt service payments in the amount of
$946,942.
Motion to accept Article 10?
Second,
Any discussion?
I just want to make sure that we are all clear that we had said for the 150,000 for the head of the harbor, that study was going to be delayed, but the money would be there.
That's
My
what we all,
understanding, yeah.
that's
yeah,
in
that's what
here.
we all
Yep.
assumed,
Okay, just want to
understood.
make sure.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
all in favor? 5-0.
Article 11, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $4,601,547 from estimated non-property tax revenues, $200,000 from undesignated fund balance, and $800,000 from capital projects reserve account to reduce property tax commitment.
Motion to adopt Article 11.
Second?
Have a first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
So Articles 12 and 13, I just want to mention before you vote on them, there's a question on the next agenda item as to whether you want these two to show up on the warrant articles or you want them to be on the ballot as questions that people vote on election day when they're at the polls. So I think before you vote on this one, Lori, should we have them decide where they want it to be?
Yeah, so right now they're in the open warrant, which means that we would discuss them on the town meeting floor. And one of them is the road association agreement with Beaver Pond and Prescott. And the second one is the 30-year contract with Eco Maine.
I'd like to see them both on the warrant.
Say that again?
I'd like to see them both at the voting booth.
Well, you want to see them then on, yeah, you want them pulled out to be separate items?
Not at the town meeting on Tuesday or at the voting booth. Is that what you're saying?
You want them on the
You
ballot.
want them
I
on the
want
ballot?
the ballot.
I don't feel strongly one way or the other, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think they're both very good for the town. I'd be surprised if, to
I think
me,
it's more of an awareness thing.
okay,
but I think-
because
I think-
13, you really, how are you gonna vote again? You're gonna have the garbage collect on the street? I mean, but all right.
What do you feel?
I think I'm with John. I can see Mary Beth, this is one way of letting people know what is going on. Because a lot of times when, during a warrant, it's like, okay, kind of thing.
David?
I can go either way, but if the board wants to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide, I can go with that.
Let's do that.
So they want it on the ballot.
Okay. All right, what about Article 13, which is the waste handling agreement and recycling services agreement with Eco Maine?
I think that belongs in the warrant. I don't see where that needs to be brought out
I
separately.
agree.
I mean,
Okay.
we're not making a choice. That's business that we.
Okay. So that will be the new Article 12. So that reads, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a waste hauling agreement and recycling services agreement with Eco Maine to accept and process the town's solid waste and recyclable materials for a 30-year period commencing July 1, 2025.
Move that we accept Article 12,
Second.
I have a first. and
Slash 13.
well, just 12, it's 13.
I have a first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
So this will be on the warrant at the
Okay.
town meeting.
Yeah, this will stay on the
Sorry.
warrant.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
That's
we're
Wednesday,
clear.
right?
5-0.
Okay, and then the final article will be Article 13. And it is to accept the transfer of a 1980 GMC four-wheel drive K30 mini pumper, commonly known as Kennebunkport Engine 22, from the town of Kennebunkport Fire Department to the Wildwood Fire Company, with the condition that if the Wildwood Fire Company sells Engine 22, all net proceeds of the sale will be used toward the purchase of firefighting or rescue equipment approved by the fire chief and to be owned by the town.
Move to accept Article 14,
13.
13.
13
Second.
slash
I
14.
have a first and second, any more discussion? No? Yep, all in favor? 5-0.
Okay, perfect. And I did just want to state to Mary Beth's point, all of these figures and amounts that you just voted on didn't just come, willy-nilly thrown onto the warrant at the last minute. These were the votes that you took over the past month when we had
Right.
our weekly budget discussions, and the budget board has already reviewed everything. So it's been thoroughly vetted, just so everyone out there in TV land understands that.
That's important.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
So. Review and vote on the proposed order regarding ballot questions.
So you would take the EcoMain contract off of here, because that's gonna be on the open warrant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I should read these and then vote on it?
I'm sorry, what?
I should read these and vote on it?
Yep.
Okay.
So one thing is, Galen sent me an email today. Galen, do you want to come up? So we got feedback from DEP regarding one of the ordinance changes at the 11th hour.
Yes, we did. The Maine Department of Environmental Protection, they're the ones that review our land use ordinance for compliance with shoreland zoning for chapter 1000. And so they did give us feedback on our proposed language. They mentioned that there were a few definitions that needed to be updated that are not in compliance with what the state has. So we have to take a look at those. There's some other feedback he gave about why we did not go from the footprint. You know, we are doing volume and floor area expansions currently, but there was a discussion about changing it to footprint, which is what compliance of chapter 1000 requires. The growth planning committee believes that our current setup right now is actually more restrictive than the state. And so I am going to articulate that to him, that I think that that doesn't need to be changed. But there are some definitions and some other provisions that need to be updated that they recommended. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I might add those to that if we're allowed to do that. I'm not sure if
You
that's,
don't want to go to the less restrictive of the state on that one?
we have to meet the minimum. We can't be more lenient than the state. We can be more restrictive, but we
Well, that's
can't
what I
be,
mean. We don't want to go to the state on that one and
Right.
be a little bit more lenient.
right?
Did
He's
you say
asking
that?
why,
was a-
why
I'm
are
asking
we
why.
not?
That's what he said. He's like, why aren't we? And I'm gonna mention that to him. I think the volume and floor area calculations are currently more restrictive than
And
the
why
state.
is that a good thing?
So it's, as long as we're more restrictive than the state, we can keep what we
I
currently
got
have.
it. I got it. We can do it.
Yeah.
Why do we want to be more restricted? Is there a good reason that we're more restricted? This is, am I opening a can of worms?
So the growth planning committee, when we reviewed this in detail, and even with the planning board, we did discuss this with them. The concern was there were some coastal communities that have moved to the footprint expansion model. And what that allows is for larger, taller structures that are not conforming in your beach line area. And so there are some coastal towns that are close by to us that have done that switch and it's changed the nature of what your community looks like. And so the growth planning committee thought in, retrospect, we really enjoy our charming beachfront community. We don't want to see big tower skyscraper type structures.
I had realized it's been vetted by both committees.
Yeah.
This is their choice. That's answer enough to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you,
So just back up a little bit. So there are these changes that are coming in at the 11th hour. I mean, it is okay for us to bring the language forward we have now and make those corrections if we're going to in November. It is challenging when they come in with these changes after we've gone through this whole process. And so I'm not telling you we have to do that, but I wanted you to be aware. So you have the same information we do. And what process you want to use, whether you want to entertain them or you want to go with what we have now and look at the amendments when we have more time to analyze them.
How
just
substantive are they? I mean,
Again, some of them are like the upland edge of the wetland for a coastal. I think we're more restricted than the state, so I'm going to argue that with him. What the change is basically the hat line, so the highest astronomical tide. Currently in our area, it's 6.3. Our current definition says it has to be 7. So we are more restrictive than the state. I don't think you need to make that change right now, but there is concerns about the functionally water dependent uses. That definition is different than what is in the state right now. I haven't analyzed to see what the ramifications would be for that.
I'd like to wait and make the changes in November. if
I
we
would
have
too.
to.
We need time. We need time to look.
And
at
I
it.
would also like to understand, like, when we're more restrictive to the state, I would like to understand why.
Yeah, could have them come in. Yeah.
Can, which one is this gonna impact?
The land use ordinance.
So is this gonna impact the ability for people to raise their buildings if we delay this to November?
Yes, we wouldn't be able to do that. So
No, I'm not saying delay the whole
Right, right.
language.
No
no one's saying delay the whole.
I'm
Well, no,
just saying delay the changes.
Some folks said to they wanted to wait till November. I get the impression
For
they want to
the,
put it on the November
the
ballot.
feedback that's.
The DEP corrections.
To make the net changes.
Gotcha, all right.
And I can let him know that if that's the board's pleasure, that
Yeah.
we're gonna look at November to make those additional changes that he's brought to our
I
attention.
think that's the way we want to go, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
do
you.
that. Yep.
So I need a motion.
To wait or to do 13?
I think we're supposed to come up with the order of the ballot questions, right?
I didn't hear what you said,
I
John.
think we're just doing 13 now, right? But that was just a heads up.
Yes,
Right.
that was just a heads up.
Right.
The language you have in here hasn't been changed.
Great.
So A is floodplain ordinance amendments, B is land use ordinance amendments, C is Beaver Pond and Prescott agreement. And we're
And
not,
E is solid waste ordinance.
and E is solid waste ordinance.
So this is you declaring to the town that these will be on the ballot.
Correct. I'd like to make a motion that we include the sections A, B, C, and D of Article
Not D.
13.
No, not D. E.
Well, it's E now. Okay, E, right.
Is
Correct.
that your motion?
That's my motion
Wait a minute, I'm lost here. Where are you?
on the,
Oh,
right here.
no, you're on the agenda.
What's that page?
This is it.
Oh, the agenda.
It wasn't the even name.
No, I don't have it.
You're taking a copy, please, Ben.
Oh, second page.
It was Article 12 that we're moving.
I think we did 12. I think
We did.
we're moving 13
Yeah.
here, I think.
Yeah, you made the motion and I need a second.
I'll second it.
And the first and second.
Wait a minute, okay, I'm confused. I thought it was Article 12.
No, you're on the wrong.
Yeah, no.
It's Article
This is-
13.
We've done
This is
12.
not
But
article,
this is-
this is,
Agenda item
agenda
13.
item.
Okay. I thought it was related.
Yeah,
There,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, it is.
So we're just voting on the order?
Yes.
We're voting on these 4 pieces to be added with taking the Eco Main by your comment out of the,
No, the Beaver Pond don't.
Beaver
I'm
Pond,
sorry, the Beaver Pond.
you wanted
yeah.
Eco Main in.
Yeah, Eco, well,
No,
Taking out-
no,
no.
no, Eco Main,
Beaver
taking
Pond,
out
Beaver
B.
Pond was gonna be on the ballot.
right.
Eco
Eco
Main's
Main.
gonna be at town
warrant.
meeting,
It's gonna be
at the
on the
warrant,
Correct.
right,
Right. So this is the ballot motions.
right, in
Okay,
the order
gotcha.
of the ballot
So
question.
I have a first, I don't have a second yet.
Second,
I have a
Those are
second.
confusing first. Are
Any
you okay on the
more,
first?
any more discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor? 3, 4,
I'm
5.
okay.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you.
It's getting late.
Okay,
oh, and
enterprise budget presentation.
Oh, you're kidding.
Stephanie, you're up.
Yep.
Do I have to do the clicker too?
Well,
Well, hello, everyone.
hello.
I am here with my special revenue budget for the Recreation Department. Okay. I've never worked one of these before, so this is fun. Okay, the recreation team, we are comprised of 3 full-time staff, myself as the department director, and 2 recreation programmers, Andy and Brighton. Throughout the year, we employ 40+ part-time and seasonal employees. The special revenue budget is used for our programs and all the related expenses around these programs. Using a budget like this gives us the ability to change throughout the year, adding programs with trends and different things that happen throughout the year. At the end of the year, we do move $100,000 from the special revenue budget into the general fund. These are the different categories that we use when we are doing our budget for the special revenue. As you can see, the top 2 categories are camps and our after-school adventures program, comprise of almost 70% of our revenues. This is a trend we are seeing in our programming, that the childcare type programs, camps, after-school programs are all on the increase with participation. And with that comes along some extra expenses with our wages. And I have that in the next couple of slides. But our expense categories, majority of it is coming from the wages of our instructors and the program expenses themselves, the supplies, tickets for different shows and things we do with the programs. So yes, what I'm seeing is that the revenues are on the rise because of our after-school programs and our camps, which is a great thing. We love that these are on the rise because they do comprise the majority of our budget and our revenues. What we are seeing on the expense side of things, though, are wages. Wages are on the rise. There is a lot of opportunity out there right now for young people, especially to work. And so we are having to adjust our wages periodically to compete with all the other opportunities they have out there.
We just learned this week that the community safety officers in Kennebunk are gonna be paid $20 an hour. So that's impacting us too.
Yes,
Trickle-down effect.
it does. And we get feedback too from a lot of the young people, especially as summers are approaching, that they want to work someplace where they can also get tips. So that, that is a big competitor of ours. There's a lot of places around here that they can work and get tips. So sometimes we do struggle finding those summer staff. We are very lucky this year. We have a lot of returning staff from our camp last year, which says a lot about how Brighton managed the camps and Andy as well, and getting those staff to return again. So we're very happy about that. But we're in our groove now. Andy and Brighton have been here 2 years. I am coming up on my 4-year mark. And we are excited about the programs we're offering, and we're looking forward to doing more and just building on what we have and creating that community here in Kennebunkport. But I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding
No,
the
I just
budget.
want to say that you and your team have done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Really
agree.
appreciate the
Thank
time and
you.
effort you
Ditto.
Put into it.
Thank you. Really
Yep.
appreciate that.
So your budget this year is $520,318.
Yes.
So we need to have a motion.
So I make a motion are we adopting this recreational special revenue budget?
I don't think we.
What's
Do we-
that?
Yes, normally you would adopt the budget presented with the total revenue amount, which is $520,318.
It's a little bit different. This is an enterprise fund. And it's a little bit different than the other.
Move to accept the recreation special revenue budget.
Well, somebody made a motion. before.
I did, I just didn't
Oh,
use
I'm
the
sorry.
I didn't use the 523.
Okay, Bob, second.
Okay.
First and second, any discussion on this?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor? 5-0. Thank
Thank you very much.
Wastewater. Oh, I heard.
Good evening, everybody. This is the wastewater budget we're presenting. I'm also here with Peter Conroy, who's our wastewater operations manager. And so we're both here to represent this tonight. So we've basically been treating the same amount of water. We've generated also a fair amount of biosolids. You see yards composted. We are no longer composting at this time. So in this next fiscal year, you will not be seeing compost in that particular fiscal year. So that's the end of that. We are now officially landfilling our biosolids at this time. So next slide, please. So we have been going through the last several years. We've gone through quite a bit. We've been going through a lot of changes. We've been making a lot of upgrades with some critical assets that we have really needed to replace. Also, some of the changes with state law not allowing us to compost anymore. We needed to move to landfilling and also putting in equipment such as the bell presses. We needed to get rid of those. We're now going to centrifuges because we need a certain dry cake with our biosolids to be able to landfill. That was a requirement for doing that. We see our programmable logic controllers for the plant. Those are the brains at the treatment plants that we have. We have 4 of them at the treatment plants. Those are our Achilles heel of the plant. Should those fail, we would then have been in a position where we would have had to cover shifts 24/7. So those are critical pieces of equipment. We've replaced those. As we can, next slide, please. Yeah, as we continued on, we also had to upgrade our SCADA system. We were running Windows 7 SCADA system at the time. We've finally gotten those upgraded, and also we've upgraded our influent frequency drives, our variable frequency drives that basically ramp our motors up and down. Those are coming to age. And also we've installed new mixers, and those mixers to actually help us with our process control in the aeration tanks, etc. Next slide, please. I just want to stress that we utilize criticality analysis when we do this. When I say criticality analysis, it's just a fancy word for saying what is the risk of failure and what is the consequence of that failure should a piece of equipment fail. Similar to the PLCs, the programmable logic controllers that I talked about, should those have failed, we would have been in a situation we were required to go 24/7. So we're really looking at those assets and been looking at those assets when we make any decision on which piece of equipment should be replaced next. We have basically a spreadsheet and database, and that's how we make our decisions and recommendations to you folks. Next slide, please. The plant blower configuration is that is actually a cost. We wanted to basically replace this. Those blowers are actually oversized for the amount of aeration that we need. They basically provide oxygen, dissolved oxygen to our aeration tanks. If we are overfeeding oxygen during the wintertime because it is cold and the dissolved oxygen goes up, it actually can affect filamentous in our biological process that we do, and also uses up, quite frankly, electricity if we don't use it all. So we wanted to actually do a configuration for that, basically bringing down the amount of air that it generates and utilize less electricity. The other recommended capital asset, next day, please, is the 2013 service truck that we have. It's one of a kind for us. It is whenever somebody's called out for any kind of emergency, this is the vehicle that they take out. It has a crane on it. It has all the necessary equipment on there that we need to be able to work on any pump station that we have. That's including 16 major pump stations as well as 88 smaller pump stations that we have to maintain in the town. Critical piece of equipment. It's getting tired. The crane, like you can imagine, does have wear and tear on the equipment. It is they're quite heavy, and certainly some of the motors we have to pick up are quite heavy. And it's just a piece of equipment that we just can't do without. All our motors are submersible. They sit in pits, and we have to pull those motors to be able to work on them when they go down.
So I have a question. Is that going to be a trade-in, or is that going to be a sale, or are you going to keep it?
There's discussion as to whether we want to possibly reconfigure that for the highway department and utilize that as a utility for the highway department. There's some discussion about that. I'm not sure what the value is, the trading value at this time. But we certainly we can evaluate that to see whether it's either worth trading in, and if we can get a decent value for it, sure. I think that's what we'll recommend, but we'll be back. Obviously, we don't dispose of equipment unless you folks authorize us to.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a new truck or?
No, I have way too many trucks now.
Yeah.
I have too many Tonka toys.
So next slide, please. So here we're looking at an 8%, 8.23%. That is actually consistent with what our projections have been. So in the last several years, the last 3 years, we've had actually some large increases in the 2 past years. 8% was what was projected for the 3rd year out. We've been working very diligently to try to kind of turn the corner, if you will, on not utilizing too much of our capital funds, our capital reserves that we may have had on hand, and to try to make sure that we become more stabilized. Our projections moving forward after this year, which next slide, Dave, is going to be between 3% and 4% is what we're targeting for the years moving forward, which is actually consistent with what we were targeting 3 or 4 years ago. So we've been doing a lot of work to get to where we wanted to be. Part of this is also the part of our drivers. Obviously, we've done a $2 million upgrade, which was 2 pump stations, Chicks and Green, put in a brand new generator for the treatment plant to be able to operate the treatment plant at 100%. 3 major pump stations that we just replaced, which are Patty Creek, Cape Porpoise, as well as Wells District, the clarifier upgrades, the centrifuges, the mixers that you just saw, and some mixer bridges. So those are all items that we've done in the last 5 to 6 years, which kind of somewhat of a driver with the major upgrades, but we're now getting to a point where we're trying to keep enough capital reserves on hand where we're doing operating capital. A little more operating capital, not so much bonding at this time, because those major pump stations are in place. So we're trying to get to a point where we're reinvesting between 300,000 and 500,000 in operating capital to get a steadier sewer rate.
How's the Cape Porpoise pump station working? Good?
Yeah, yes, some of those pump stations used to give us ghost alarms all the time, so we used to get called out in all hours of the night sometimes. We're very happy to have those right now. They're running very well. Everything is running well right now. We do have odor control there at Cape Porpoise as well. We also have odor control at Patty Creek. So we're looking forward to this summer. We'll see how well they're working. So
Is that one of the biggest pump stations we have?
yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the deepest ones as well. So it's probably almost 25 feet deep. So when we went down to do and work on any of the motors, we had to go down into a pit that was 25 feet deep. We've removed that pit now, as the need for the service truck is we now pull those motors right out of there. We'll put them and work on them on the ground or back at the shop. Next slide, please. So just to show you where we stand with the rest of, our colleagues in the industry here, we're roughly in the middle. And so we're running an average, everyone is going to be bouncing around a little bit. Everybody's doing their own capital projects right now. We're going to take a breather for a couple of years from requesting any kind of bonding. We're going to stay with just operating capital, maybe work on some design work, pre-work for that. So right now, we hope we'll probably, as we look at this in the upcoming years, we will probably stay in that lower between middle to lower half, we would anticipate at this point. Next slide, please. Oh, looking forward to the future. I think we talked a little bit about the variable frequency drives we did the influent pumps. We're going to do the effluent pumps next with the service truck and replacing the service truck. So that's our objectives. We also talked about the blowers as well. So that's our objectives for this upcoming year. Design of the Ocean Avenue, that is, we were looking to do this with operating dollars, but or operating capital to design the Ocean Avenue next year, South Main Street, as well as Turbot's Creek. And those are our next large pump stations, but not as large as the ones we've just replaced. The construction of the Ocean Avenue, Main Street, we'll be having those discussions in FY28 about whether we want to go into bonds at that time. So we'll be having more discussions about that, as well as the replacement of our 2006 jetter. Our jetter is basically a very high pressure hose that we utilize to clean out the sewers. And we do that every year. Every spring, you'll find us working up and down Ocean Avenue, going to the pump stations, taking grit material out of our wet wells and things like that. It's part of the maintenance program that we have. And then the two axial of FY29 with looking at a flatbed truck, a half ton truck, as well as two axial flow pumps. It's equipment that's within our aeration tanks that we have. They get tired. It's keeping up with the equipment so that we're just keeping our equipment up as we go along. They've been giving us a little bit of trouble. We've got some good mechanics thankfully on hand, but at some point they're going to fail. They're going to fail us. So. The trucks as well as the axial pump. So next slide, please. So on March 29th, we met with the advisory committee and we had a unanimous vote of 2-0 to approve this budget. They have been seeing these projections and the rate at which we're going, which we've stayed on track with what we projected over the years. And at that next slide, I will leave it open to questions if anybody has any.
Board have any questions? Okay.
I
So
think it's just the process. I'm a little confused. So I apologize. Maybe it's just a long meeting, but so this just seems like we made a decision about the budget and the capital within the budget. And so this is now taking it back to say, okay, we need a rate change, the rate, the 8.23%. I feel like we already had a budget discussion and now we're having this discussion, So I'm looking at it from what our residents are going to get hit with, right? So we know the school, all the county stuff, and then our own. And then this is another one. So for example, I would have wanted to have a discussion about if we were projecting we were going to go up 8%, I would have wanted to say, well, can we can we take some funds out of some other place, you know? And so I feel like the end of the year, we moved 1.6 over from the general fund to capital, and I probably would have wanted to fund some other things to try to keep things down. So it might just be a long,
So
meeting.
we're-
I might be tired. so
Well,
I
we are an
apologize for
enterprise
you.
fund. We are an enterprise fund, so we have to keep everything within our wastewater locale, so our capital needs to be paid for unless it's bonded. Well, bonding is a shared with.
So we can't do anything from the town buckets.
No, not.
Not for the enterprise fund. The only thing, the wastewater ordinance says is that the debt will be split 40-60. So 60% comes from the general fund and 40% comes
This is the
from
bonding.
the wastewater user fees.
Yeah. So the big driver here for us, obviously, this year was starting to pay for those bonds that we've had. So we've got a 2021 bond and a 2023 bond that we're now moving forward. So those are the largest impacts to us. That's why we're trying to spread those.
Yeah, no, everything you've gone through with the team and stuff and all the upgrades have been duly warranted and needed. And all the work is really important. I just didn't understand the siloed bucket that we couldn't move anything else into. Thank you.
Any more discussion? So we're gonna take two votes, one, or can we just do one vote with okay, we can do one vote. $1,907,616 for the budget, and then we also have to vote on the rate, which is $708.74. So we're gonna be.
Can we do it together or no?
We can do it together.
Okay.
And I just wanted to bring that up.
So move.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any discussion on the rates or the budget? All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Okay.
They both disappear.
Okay, Cape Porpoise Pier. Hi, Frank.
Let's get started. The membership statistics for Cape Porpoise Pier, we have 58 Cape Porpoise Pier members. 33 of those are commercial, 16 recreational, 3 dealers, and 6 punt use. It's very similar to last year. For the moorings, we have 226 moorings in town waters and 55 requesters on the various wait lists for Cape Porpoise Harbor. My priorities for this year have been to maintain access for the fishermen during the construction and keep our services going as much as possible. I'm doing everything I can to support the pier rehabilitation project, and I'm also trying to support the existing aquaculture and promote some new development of that. The budget was approved unanimously by the Pier Advisory Committee on April 1st. 5 of the committee members were in attendance for that vote. For the revenue summaries, we're projecting pretty similar revenues to the previous fiscal year, about a 0.9% increase. And the expense summary, projected total expenses for fiscal year 2026 are actually 1.6% lower than fiscal year 2025. Tried to cut some items out of there. The projections for the utilities are based on the expected usage rates once the bait shed and office are back in service. The gasoline and diesel are difficult to predict right now because we don't have them, but we're leaving those expenses the same as the previous year for next year. I was able to eliminate the office heating fuel from the budget because the new office will have an electric heat pump rather than a gas-powered heater. We took the new mooring software package out of the budget. We don't really need to do that. That'll take $2,000 out of the budget there. I did have to increase the travel and education expenses just because the State Harbor Masters Association is raising their fees and rates. The biggest single line item that changed was the expert and professional services. Added $3,600 into that line item. In last year's budget, it was 0.
Any
What is,
questions?
yeah, what is that one?
I was using that like for things like the tank inspections. We had to do some tank tightness tests. Other things like that.
Is that a once of, or is that a recurring cost, or what's that?
It should be recurring annually. Things like the hoist inspections, the fire extinguishers, I was going to put in that, the tank inspections, any pump inspections, things like that.
And we're doing that in the past?
They were. That might have been an oversight on my part that it was zero for this year. It was not zero in previous years.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions? Okay, the budget's $526,141.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, the next one is Dock Square parking lot.
You want to review
Like being thrown under the bus.
So the Dock Square parking lot budget, we are proposing, $610,000 in revenues for this year. And then we have, make this smaller so I can see it. So we have, the biggest drivers pretty much in this is the wages and the benefits. And we also have, our credit card fees come out of this budget. And then we have a transfer out to take care of the bathrooms. And notes here. And then just fees to take care of the bathrooms and like buy supplies and just to keep it running down there. So we are proposing the revenues at 610 and then our expenses are at 605, $605,059.
Thank you. Have a motion?
Motion to accept the Dock Square parking lot budget.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any discussion?
Were we underwater because we raised the rates? Oh, no, we didn't raise these rates. Nothing.
We did a couple years ago.
Just on the surface.
So I have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hear none? All in favor?
We might have to be one of the non-for-profits that mans the booth.
Yeah.
I'm
Seems
glad,
like it's a little thin.
for some
I think the select board has to go take some coin.
reason, I'm glad I couldn't hear you.
She said we might have to go to the parking lot with our hand out.
During prelude, we'll be one of the non-for-profits.
So our next one is the government wharf.
You want to do that? You want me to? So the government wharf budget is fairly simple. We did see a decrease in 2 of the lobstermen this year as they retired. So the fees went up. If you go to the second sheet, you can see what the fees and the projections are. So fees are going from 600 to 650 a year for lobstermen. Commercial is going to go from 350 to 400. Base dues will go from 250 to 300. Bait spaces is something new this year. So we do have some extra bait spaces, and Government Wharf Committee thought we ought to rent those out to help raise some revenue. And then we're keeping student dues the same. We only have 1 student, and his dad pays the bill, so we didn't want to lose him, but that would put expenses just over, revenues just over expenses.
So we're looking for $12,574.
So moved.
Second.
I have
Second.
First and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you. Okay. 15, approve the solid waste rules.
There you go. So in solid waste rules, we had a lot of references in the rules to Casella, and the fact that Casella was actually picking up our solid waste and recycling, as well as taking it to their facilities. So all references to Casella have been removed out of the rules. And as far as disposal, all references have been now taken to Echo Main based on the presumption that we'll have an approved contract with them. Also, I've removed the references to Casella as being our operator. And basically they said a contracted hauler or contracted company is what we refer to there, and have references to that should in the future, because we only have a 4-year contract that we'll be doing with Casella. Should that change, not to have to come back and change these rules again and change somebody's name, is very specific to Casella in the past. So we just kind of remove those references. That is really the gist of this. There were no significant changes that, there was no significant change in the way we operate. We just wanted to clean up the fact that the board will still approve the haulers that are in town, because now we may have haulers that don't go to Echo Main. We're not requiring that they go to Echo Main. They may go somewhere else. But we're also asking those haulers to follow the rules of whoever the operators are that they're taking it to, that they have to take it to an approved facility, a state approved facility, those types of language. So it's a little more generic, making things more generic, still keeping the general rules under the board's purview. And also, I think we're also requiring that our contractor provide a list of their vendors and such, and that's no longer required since we're the ones controlling that list. So generally,
And then we updated it to comply with the automated waste pickup.
yes, right, to say that they had to have the bins, so on and so forth. Thank you, Lori. That's just the fact that we're not anticipating that we'll be changing the way we operate. They're going to have to follow Echo Main's rules based on what they put in their
And that we own the bins.
And we own the bins. We did say that. That is one of the statements that's in there. Yeah. So it's a small but important detail that we are retaining the ownership of the bins, so that people do not decide to just put out their own bins out there. We are not allowing that to happen. It has to be a Kennebunkport bin. And we will retain ownership of those should they move or should something happen. We will have to reassign them to the new resident.
Don't take it with.
Yeah, and that happens.
What happens if they do?
I've seen some bins in communities that I work
have a
for
tracker.
that are in other towns. I mean.
We would do our best.
I don't want to start any stuff.
Just out of curiosity, it looks like this is in here 4 times, but that's not, they're not different, are they? In the digital copy.
Are you seeing it are you looking at it under a Word document? Because
Yeah, well, okay, just as long as they're not different, then.
because the strikeouts and everything are in the Word document. They may not be seen by you if you're looking at it under a more generic format.
No, I'm looking at the Word document.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's very long. And I don't think it's.
Yeah.
Are we
got any questions? Are we good?
We need.
I can't hear.
I'll
Do we
make a
need to
motion.
put anything?
Yes.
Okay,
To adopt?
No,
No, it's adopt.
I'll make the motions right here.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended solid waste rules.
You didn't want me to make
Well,
a,
No, you
second
can't.
that.
You're the chair.
no, I can.
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, now you know
Second.
it. Second, all. Any more discussion? None? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 16, approve funding for the Shorebird Volunteer Coordinator, Beach Cleanup and Dune Staking Project.
So moved.
So we have to put monies in there.
Yeah.
How much?
So were you at the Friday meeting?
Yes,
Do you
yes,
want
of
it?
course, I don't have the numbers in front.
So it was
You
4,000.
don't have a microphone either.
Sure. I can come back.
Why, you want me
Are
to
we
read it?
done?
Yeah, I
You
think
want me to
so.
read it?
Yes.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the 12,000 for the beach cleanup, 1,200 for the beach cleanup, 400 for the dune staking, and 4,000 for the plover coordinator position from Goose Rocks Beach Reserve account.
Second.
Have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay. 17, appoint Charlene Stafford to the lighting committee with the term expiring in June 2028.
So
Jim
moved.
Stockman has talked to her and thought that she'd make a good fit.
Sounds great. If you,
Second,
I have a first,
second,
second, any discussion? All in favor?
thank you.
Okay, this is one of my favorite items. Approve the town manager's contract. I'm waiting for a motion.
Motion to approve the town manager's contract.
second.
I have a first and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
And I hope you're happy.
Thank you.
I,
We're trying to make you happy.
That's right.
Thank you for what you do.
Absolutely.
19, other business, David.
I have no other business tonight.
Neither does Mary Beth. I have no other business.
Mary Beth,
Sorry.
you skipped, no, you sure? Okay,
None for here.
I'm all set.
So, one thing I wanted to make you aware is I was accepted into the Harvard Kennedy School,
Yay.
but I did not get the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
Still okay.
Yeah.
Still okay.
Yep.
So you'll be out at the Dock Square parking lot too? What weekend do you need for that?
That was very good.
The other item was I did send an email to the board about operating hours and looking to change those for staff. And I didn't know if anybody had any feedback on that.
I had some, I think that this would work. Actually, it's just for what? A staff thing for 6 months, correct?
Well, I was thinking that it will be fall at that point, you know, a change of seasons, and also people will have a chance to see how they like it.
Yeah.
And that we can reevaluate.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Fine.
What about everybody
I have
else?
no issues with it. The town, if this is what the Laurie and her staff are willing to try, I think it's something worth
Yeah.
doing. Help us attract new people. I think it's the wave, so.
The police department's already doing it, aren't they?
The police department for March and April are doing 410s on a trial basis. So far, it seems to be working good.
Mary Beth?
No, I think it's a great thing to try, and like Laurie said, and then if any adjustments need to be made based on feedback from her staff, you know, they can be made later.
David?
Same.
Do you need a motion or no?
You know, if you guys wanted to.
Sure, we like to make motions. I have a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the proposed work schedule for the town under the stated trial basis.
Second.
Starting in the fall.
First and second, any more discussion?
When does it start? Fall?
I was thinking in May, starting it.
So-
In May, and running it through the summer and then
Well, that's a big
reevaluating.
time. I mean, that's.
That's
That's.
Does that change how you feel?
No.
Gonna test it, you gotta test it with fire.
I suppose,
So all in favor?
I guess.
1,
Good.
2, 3, I have 4.
He's good.
Dave? Oh,
No, I,
5.
yeah, no.
Okay, 5-0.
Good.
Okay,
Words that had that sunset clause, I'm okay.
20. Approve the treasurer's warrants, April 10th treasurer's warrant.
Move, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Move to adjourn.
5-0.
Second.
All in favor?
We're done.
Wow, thank you.
Well, liquor license.
Thank you, guys.